2891. The applicants, Barbara Barnes and Michael Stefano, property located at 132 Woods Lane and zoned R1 density modification. The applicant seeks to construct a swimming pool in their rear yard. The applicant seeks a variance and/or other required relief from Section 280-97B4 of the zoning code relating to the distance from which an accessory structure may be located in the rear property line. Section 280-112D of the code governing uses permitted in steep slope, or contends that the use is allowed in by Section 280-121I of the code, Section 280-94A of the code regarding impervious surfaces.
Evening.
It's your turn. Good evening.
Norma, you want to speak?
Rob Lambert.
Barbara Barnes.
Michael Stefano.
Real quick question before we start. In the notice, it says it's referencing a number 280-121. I think it should be 280-112.
280-112.
No, it says 121 in the notice, but I think it should say 112. I just want to make sure that was just a typo.
The application does say 112.
The application does say 112. The notice does not. I just want to point that out.
As was explained in the notice, what the applicant seeks here is to construct a pool in the rear of their home. The important thing to note here is that the Woods is a density modification development, and the rear of their home actually backs up to the open space, and we'll show you pictures of that. It's a heavily dense area. There is no neighbor that is close to it. Matter of fact, almost all the adjacent neighbors are here this evening in support of the application. There's three things that I mentioned in the application. One is the rear yard setback, where certainly we need a variance for the accessory structure because it's closer than 10 feet from that rear property line. It complies with the side yards as to the adjacent properties, but as to the rear yard, which backs up to the open space, it is in violation of the 10-foot setback for accessory structures. As to the impervious coverage, actually we are reducing the impervious coverage here. I don't believe we need relief in that regard, but I just included it just in case because I know we've been here before, and if it's not asked for or someone brings it up, then sometimes the argument is it can be continued. As to the steep slope, you'll hear evidence and see photos about how obviously the steep slope we're talking about here is not a natural steep slope. It's a man-made steep slope that was constructed when the house was built back in the 1970s. And we'll start off with Barbara. Barbara, you're under oath, and why don't you state your full name?
Yes. It's Barbara Ann Barnes.
Yeah, I put it on.
Hello.
Yeah. Barbara, you own the property with your husband, Mike?
Yes, Michael and I bought the property on June 14th, 2002, and did some work inside and moved in August 2002.
And who lives there now with you?
Besides the two of us, we have three boys who are ages 9.5, 12, and almost 14.
And what I have shown here and attached A2 is a deed indicating your property?
Yes.
Okay. And purchased June of 2002, correct?
Correct.
I'm just going to show you A3 that we have in the packet. And A3 just indicates what lot is yours. Is that correct? Which I'm pointing to right here that's outlined in the yellow.
Yes, that's ours.
And back here is the open space that we were talking about.
Correct.
That borders your property to the rear.
Yes.
Now, A4 is the plan that is actually indicated here that's prepared by Rob Lambert, a professional engineer who is here this evening. And this shows a location of the pool. Is that right?
Yes, that location is basically the only spot that we can put the pool.
Yeah. And since this is a density modification development, actually, and it's in an R1 area, your lot is much less than the required 1 acre lot area for a normal R1 development, is that right?
Correct.
And in fact, as we see, the depth of the lot on the one side is only 107 feet from the right-of-way, and on the other side is 116 feet from the right-of-way. Is that right?
That's right.
And the house is actually set back somewhat from your building setback line in the front, so that it actually is located when it was built into the rear of the lot.
Yes, it is.
And when was the home built?
And about 1976, I believe.
Okay. And the size of the pool, what is the size of the pool, and why do you need that width that we have indicated there?
We're asking for a variance because the pool, because of, I think probably originally because of all the common space in back, they made the back of the yard actually very small, even though it looks very large. And so there's actually only about 30 feet behind the garage to the back of the property. So since you have to be 10 feet from the house and 10 feet from the back setback line, that basically only leaves a pool of about 10 feet in width. And we do have 3 boys who are getting taller and bigger all the time, and I have safety concerns about the width only being 10 feet. I'm afraid that they would actually just kind of dive in from one side and within a second would be at the other side. So I'm afraid that it's not, it wouldn't be usable or, in my opinion, safe. I wouldn't feel comfortable with it.
And so what is the width that you're actually proposing?
We're asking for a variance of 4 or 5 feet, which I believe Rob knows it's a little bit different in different locations.
No, what's the width
What's the
of
width
the
of the
pool?
pool?
So we'd like a pool of 16 feet
Right,
wide.
Now, I'm going to show you A9. That's just the front of your home, correct?
Yes, it is.
Put that down here. And A10, and can you describe what the board, in particular, what A10 represents here? And where is this picture taken from?
That picture is taken from my driveway, and you can see our yard in the back, and then all of the woods that lead up to Upper Gulf Road and back. And as you can see from the picture, there's not anyone behind us. And the pool essentially would go around the area of where basically the playground is there and a little bit maybe to the left.
And actually, the playground is almost right on your property line, even though there's some lawn beyond that. Is that right?
Exactly. That's actually common space grass behind the playground.
And what I've marked is as A11, could you just tell the board what that represents? I believe that's looking at your eastern
Yes,
neighbor.
that's the view from one side of our yard to the Grobles to the right of our yard.
And then A12?
A12 is a picture the opposite direction. It's looking from the other side of our yard, and it's facing the Moeller side. Both the Moellers and the Grobles are here today. They're our adjacent neighbors.
Okay, and when we notice, too, on the plan that's been marked as A4, the existing impervious is 31.5%, is that right?
Yes,
And we're actually proposing less than that, is that correct?
Cor-
30.9%?
correct.
And how are you reducing the impervious?
We are going to take off the deck and put basically a smaller amount of space around the pool, some hardscaping.
All right, and the rest, Rob, why don't you come up? You've already been sworn in, and if I can refer you regarding the steep slope here. I've marked as A13 a photograph kind of showing the swing set and a sloped area behind the garage. Could you tell the board how that came to get there?
Yeah, that area there, you're standing actually in the open space looking through the play set. You can see the slope that leads up to the garage, and it was clearly man-made when they built the garage and the driveway, that area there was filled to create a flat area for both the garage and the driveway.
What number are you looking at, Nick?
A13.
A13.
Should be marked in the bottom right-hand corner, yeah. And A14, I believe, is kind of the same picture, just taken a little further back.
It gives a little bit of perspective. You can see the deck on the right-hand side. You have the play set, and then behind that, you can see the slope where the car is parked in the driveway. You can see, that was just pushed out there. On the left-hand side, you can see kind of where the fence, follows that same slope line.
And A15, this shows the property actually to the east, and can you
Yeah, if we go back to A14 for 1 second, on the very far left side of A14, you can see where that end of the fence line is. And so going to A15, now you'd be standing right at the end of that fence line that was shown on A14 and looking up. So you can see the fence a little bit offset to the right of the photograph. And on the right-hand side, you can see where the driveway is higher. You can see the grass with a little bit of the green slope. But on the left-hand side, you can see where it's flat, or the yard's relatively flat, and you see the two large trees that are close to the house. So those trees predated the construction of these houses, and you can see the natural grade was much lower at the time that these houses were constructed.
Now, I jumped ahead a little bit here. What is your profession?
Civil engineer.
Okay, and how long you've been a civil engineer?
16 years.
And you're registered in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I am.
Okay. Also, I'm going to show you what I'm going to hand up. Actually, I handed up a copy, but I do have the full plan here. And in particular, referring to lot number 23. I've marked it, John, as A16. This is the full plan. What you have in front of you is A16 is really the plan as it relates to this particular lot. This is the subdivision plan for the Woods development from 1974. And I'll just hand that out.
Yeah, he's handed in your packet, each of your packets, a photocopy of a portion of that plan that shows their lot.
Do we need this in the record? Do we need this in the file?
I think it might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, no, I'll be happy to take it back, actually. That's the only copy I have, so I'd be happy to. I mean,
Kevin, do we need this in there? This is their only record. Can they make a copy and bring it to you? Fine.
We can work with them to make a copy. If Nick wants to drop off a copy, we can keep it in with the file.
or I can stop in and get a copy. Okay. I can stop off and get a copy from Kevin.
Okay.
Okay.
I just, I know sometimes you get these things and you hate they're gone and they're
Right.
gone forever.
Now, A16, and in particular, we've outlined Lot 23. What is the significance of A16?
What it shows is...
And this is from 1974, correct?
Right. The date on it was 11/27/1974. What you can see is actually the contour lines that pre-existed prior to this development being constructed. So you can see where there was an old driveway or roadway access about through the middle of the page, and it kind of winds through. And then you can see all the different contour lines. There was apparently a swale that went through Lot 22 and Lot 23, prior to this being constructed. But the dimension, those are 2-foot contour intervals, and the dimension of those shows that this area was not steep prior to the construction of the house.
And I'm going to show you as A17, and this is a record from the township called a property ownership record. And could you just explain the significance of that?
Yes, this shows that the house was constructed in 1976, about 2 years after this plan was created, so it was consistent with the plan.
Now, you're a registered Pennsylvania engineer, as you testified to. Do you see any issues with building this pool in steep slope as it relates to erosion and sedimentation?
No, actually, we'll be reducing the amount of steep slope, so any potential erosion will actually be reduced.
Is there any issue regarding protection of watersheds or limiting increase in stormwater runoff?
No.
Is there any possibility of landslides or soil subsidence?
No, this is a very small slope.
I'm reading from the code, so that's where I'm getting these
I
words
understand.
from, so, okay. Is there any foliage, is any plantings or landscaping that's being removed outside of grass?
Yeah, I was going to say all that's on there is grass and some small landscaping that will be removed.
And there's no streams or anything in the area that would be increasing sedimentation or anything of that nature?
No.
I have nothing further at this time. I know there are some people in the audience who are in favor of it. I think a couple of them may step up, and the other ones
Okay.
I just raise their hands.
Brad, do you have any questions? Peter?
I just would observe that we've had two recent opportunities to, we were requested to say that man-made steep slopes don't count as steep slopes, and we've declined that opportunity each time. I'm not saying that there isn't hardship or anything like that, but I'm unaware of anything in the steep slope ordinance that differentiates man-made from other natural steep slopes.
As I was going to bring up, I don't think we have. We've kind of said that steep slope's a steep slope.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there is a section, though, if you refer to it, I believe it's 112I, and it refers to, that this section does not apply to steep slopes created as a result of compliance with 175-11A and B of the Code of Radnor Township. I actually made a copy. This is a code, I'm sure you can take judicial notice, but I made a copy of that section, not the zoning section, but actually.
It's the grading section.
Of the ordinance. You know, I'll hand it up to you. It talks about standards for excavations.
Mm-hmm. But, see, this is not, though, in the zoning code. And
Now it
does refer, okay, it does refer that way, okay. Yeah.
To paraphrase some of that, it says that you can have cuts in up to a 1-to-1 slope and fills at a 1.5-to-1, which are far in excess of the 25%, or I think it's 20 or 25% that's required by code. So the code actually permits a much steeper slope than what would be considered steep. And the zoning code, going back to the zoning, that section I says that the section that precludes development on steep slopes does not apply to slopes that were constructed in conformance with the code.
Yeah, I think it seems like this is really made to help prevent slides and stuff, not so much to make the ground flat, which is what they probably did here. Okay. And no questions? Okay, no, anything else? Is there any? Okay. Anyone in the audience would like to speak?
Absolutely. My name is Bonnie Moeller. This is my husband, Emil.
And spell your name.
Bonnie, and his is Emile. And the last name is Moeller, Mohler. We live at 134 Woods Lane, which if you face the Stefano's house, we're the ones to the left. And we are here definitely in support of the Stefano's request for a variance. We've been neighbors with them since August of 2002, and I have to say, all the improvements that they made inside and outside the house have never ceased to just continually please us and impress us. They have beautiful taste with everything they've done, from the small landscaping to decorations inside. We have seen these plans. We've talked to the Stefanos about it, and again, are in full support of their request for zoning relief. It is no doubt in our minds that they will make this aesthetically pleasing, and we believe that it will increase the value of our homes in our neighborhood. From a safety perspective, they have 3 boys, we have 3 boys. Our boys are often over there, especially our youngest. So for us, this variance really, we think it's important, you know, to widen the pool. We do think it's going to be a lot safer for the kids when they're jumping in. So that's a great thing. In short, you know, our lots back up to this common space. It's very wooded. You really can't even see houses from behind. So we don't see any negative or adverse effects that could arise from passing this variance. We see it as a win-win. We see it as a safety perspective for the kids, and for the adults, we'll all be enjoying seeing our properties go up. So I hope you will, pass this request.
As I do.
State your name, please.
Robert Grobel,
And spell.
Robertgroebel. I live on the opposite side of Michael and Barbara, and I'm here representing myself and my wife. We also have 2 young children that socialize significantly with the Stefanos children, and we feel that the zoning variance will be a safety, will help from a safety perspective within the neighborhood, knowing the amount of children that are active in the summer in our area. I also echo Bonnie and Emil's sentiment about their neighborliness, the way their property is kept, and the fact that they will ensure that this is a well-built addition to their house. So we would ask that you pass the variance.
Anyone else?
We have other individuals who are also here, but I'm like, oh, they do, okay.
And your name, please?
Tricia Boyes, Triciaboyes. I live at 124 Woods Lane, a couple of houses down from the Stefanos. I agree with everything that the other neighbors have said, and most of all, we took our pool out of our backyard last year because of this very issue. Our pool was very narrow, unsafely, so that our 3 children jumping in, diving in, swimming from one side to the other, pushing off from side to side would hit their heads, and just for fear of their safety and their lives, really, we took the pool out. It just wasn't worth it. I really believe that the yards back there are narrow for pools. The common space in the back lends itself to their request, and certainly the safety of children and the enjoyment of the pool. I'm in complete favor of the variance passing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone have a question? Nick, my only problem, I mean, I don't have a problem with the encroachment on the rear yard. And of course, anyone that reduces impervious is very warm to my heart. My problem is the steep slope issue. You got to help me here.
Yeah, remember the board has, every case is unique before this board. So by granting a steep slope relief in this matter doesn't establish any sort of precedence or anything else for other cases. And as you can see from the photographs that have been presented, it's clear that the area that we're referring to has been raised as a result of development. The purpose of the steep slope ordinance is to prevent the type of things that we went through with Rob Lambert. And those things are not being harmed or any issue with any of those items that were listed in the code about the concern with cutting into steep slopes. So I think this particular case is unique when you look at the size of the lot for this development, the shape of the lot as it narrows, as it goes into the rear, and also the depth of the lot. And then you have a situation where you have an area that is steep slope because of when the house was built, it was raised and graded in that manner. So for that reason, I believe this case is certainly unique, and that when you look at the lot itself, the shape of the lot, the location of the house on the lot, and how it narrows as it's going back, and how it is not very deep at all anyway, that we have established, and this is certainly a unique situation as compared to other matters that this board has seen.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay, do you want to?
Doesn't it help the steep slope? Something there.
Do you want to accept the thing? You all done?
Yeah, we're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
We remove your exhibits to be part of the record?
Yes, please.
That's what I was after, Nick. Peter?
I move we approve appeal number 2891, variance on section 289-7B4, changing the distance from their property line and 112D on the steep slope issue. I don't believe we need to do anything about it. Just cover it.
Brad?
I second. I couldn't go with that.
I also, and again, the impervious is the fact that on the 280-94A is that they're going to reduce the impervious to the drawings, and I would grant the variance for the three requests in conjunction with the drawings that were turned in. All right, John?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Appeal 2892, applicant 115 Stratford Avenue LLC, property located at 115 Stratford Avenue and split zone CO and R4. The applicant seeks the following relief. A variance from code 28092A4 to allow density modification development on a tract of less than 5 acres. A variance from code 28091G to allow proposed decks, patios, and access walks for the proposed carriage houses to extend in the required buffer area along the south side of the property where it abuts land devoted to commercial use. A variance from Code 28029, a special exception under Code 280-101A1, or a modification of prior approvals granted by the Zoning Hearing Board in Appeal Number 2832 to allow the use of a historic building to be changed from a restaurant bar use to office use. Variance from Code 28091G and Code 28092A4 to allow the existing historic building to remain in the required buffer building setback area where it butts land devoted to commercial use. A determination that parking may remain in the front yard setback along Stratford Avenue, or alternatively a variance from Code 280-105 to allow parking to remain in the setback. A variance from Code 280-109 to allow 8-foot-high fence in the front yard setback and at other locations on the property, and any other relief necessary to allow the proposed redevelopment of the property. It's your turn now.
Thank you for reading that.
Could I just, before we start, Mr. Brosman, the package you handed up, does this replace, is this your full set of exhibits and therefore replacing what you submitted to the
Yes.
zoning officer? So this is the script and the tabs are the exhibit numbers and the other materials we don't need to,
Correct.
separately
Do-
label.
Mr. President, do you have another one that I can make as part of the record?
Yes.
If I can go through one, if you would, please. Thank you very much.
Should I proceed?
Yes.
Good evening. I'm George Brosman, representing 115 Stratford Avenue LLC, which is the equitable owner of the property at 115 Stratford Avenue. This property, I believe, is very well known to the Zoning Hearing Board and the Township. We're here seeking some dimensional relief from the zoning ordinance to be, if you will, a precursor to other approvals that we will be seeking for a mixed-use redevelopment of the property. If we are able to obtain this relief here, we will need to apply for and obtain a conditional use from the Board of Commissioners as well as a land development approval. We'll need a conditional use because, as we'll be explaining to you, we're seeking to proceed under density modification development for this tract, and that's one of the key variances that we're asking for. To do density modification in the R4 district, you need a tract of 5 acres, and we've got a tract of a little over 2 acres. That's really the key piece of relief that we're seeking from you. And I'll go into that in a little more detail. I have 2 witnesses this evening, Bo Erickson, who is a principal with 115 Stratford Avenue LLC, the applicant, and Chuck Dobson, who's a professional engineer, and he's the civil engineer for the project. I'd like to make some brief opening remarks, and then I'll just jump right into it. I think the board is well aware the property is improved with a very well-known building in the area. It's now vacant, boarded up, and it is approved, however, for a use as a bar and a restaurant. It's been under a lot of names over the years. It's been the Villa Stratford, it's been Chef Tell's, it's been the San Francisco. It dates back to, I believe it was 1964 or so, when this zoning hearing board granted a variance to allow it to go from residential use to
that bar and restaurant use, and we'll go into the history of that. The building and the overall property, if you've driven by, it's in very poor condition. It's deteriorated and declined. The key reasons for our variance, the hardships are, and we'll show you, the lot shape is very irregular. It's very long and narrow. The property is split zoned. It's zoned partially commercial for a fairly smaller part of the property closest to Lancaster Avenue, and the bulk of it is zoned R4 residential. So we have a dilemma with the split zoning. In the commercial part of the property, under strict zoning rules, we're not allowed to do residential. And in the residential part of the property, we're not allowed to do commercial, although there is this approved bar and restaurant use and the parking for that. In addition to these conditions, the zoning and the land uses surrounding the property have changed over the years dramatically. This was an old mansion, and back in the day it was surrounded by other similar dwellings, very low-density residential, and we all know how Lancaster Avenue in this area has changed. And this property is left now as the only property on Stratford Avenue between Lancaster Avenue, Route 30, and Eagle Road, the only property in that stretch that is still zoned residential. All the other properties around it, fronting on Stratford Avenue, have now commercial zoning and commercial land uses. I've put up here, I don't have it as an exhibit, but the Township zoning map. The property is here where I've placed the pointer. Lancaster Avenue, Route 30 is running diagonally through here. The property is essentially this dark green little island or peninsula. You have Lancaster Avenue with a CO zoning in the front. The Stratford Shopping Center, where the farmers market is across from the property zoned planned business district, and then the Stratford offices continue back behind there. And then on the other side of the property, you have more Stratford offices. To the rear is a very beautiful neighborhood. Some of the folks are here, Windsor Road and Farm Road. We have atlas maps to show how this area, including the subject property, was intended to be a residential neighborhood that was to be developed together. In fact, Windsor Avenue, which now ends shy of the property, was intended to go through all the way to Stratford Avenue, and that has never happened. So these are our hardships. Long, regularly shaped and narrow property. We've got split zoning. We've got changed commercial zoning and commercial land uses around us. We've got an old deteriorated building with historic value that we need to deal with. And we do have mature trees along the rear of the property where the Farm Road neighbors are, and along the north of the property adjacent to the Stratford Avenue office buildings that we would like to preserve. So even though we don't meet the size requirement for density modification, we'll have testimony to show that we believe we meet the objectives for that. And with all of these unique physical circumstances and conditions, density modification really allows for a more suitable development. The testimony will show that even though it's called density modification, we're not asking to increase our density. In fact, density modification allows for less density than the base R4 zoning. The key thing we're trying to achieve with density modification is townhomes are permitted use in the R4 district under density modification. If we can do townhomes here, we feel they're more appropriate given the surrounding commercial areas, and we feel it's a better transitional use from the commercial back to Farm Road. We're going to provide a large buffer for Farm Road, and we can do this because townhomes, as you know, can be connected to one another. They don't have to be on separate lots with their own setbacks for every lot. So we can put these together. They're a more appropriate use for the surroundings. They won't negatively impact the neighborhood. So that's why we want to do density modification. The other more key relief we need is we're seeking to change the bar and restaurant use of the building to an office use. We think that's sort of a no-brainer in terms of impacts, that I can't imagine that any office would have anywhere near the potential impacts that a bar and restaurant would have. All of the other relief, we'll go through it, is really minor things. Arguably, we may not even need some of the relief. There's some existing non-conforming conditions, but we tried to include everything that we thought we might need. With that introduction, if there's no questions for me, I would call Bo Erickson.
Yeah, just a couple of things, a question and an observation. I understand that this property has been subject to variance relief. I've even written a couple of those opinions. But I do think that the office in the R4 is fairly a use variance because each of the prior variances is a variance only for that use. So I think if we're shifting to a different use not covered by the prior variance, we have a use variance there. At some point, and maybe you can point me to something I missed in reading your application, I'd like to see how you calculated the required parking. Did I miss something on that?
It is in the plan.
Where it says require, I know how many spaces you're providing.
Are you talking about for the office?
And the residential units. Residentials are 2 per unit, right?
Right.
And I just don't know what the square footage of the office is going to be, particularly, after you renovate it. So
right.
I think you'll need to...
Chuck will talk about that, but just to answer your question, we've shown on the plan a gross floor area for the office of 10,000 square feet. Under the code, the floor area definition says it's basically 80% of that.
Mm-hmm.
So 8,000, that would translate into 40 parking spaces at 1 per 200. So we have the 40 spaces for that. We have 2 spaces per unit for the residential. We have 16 spaces for that. And then on top of that, we have 6 extra visitor spaces. So we actually have excess parking.
So you have 62 parking spaces?
Correct. And that is detailed on the plan.
Okay. Thanks.
And on your point about the variance, it was interesting. I guess maybe some decisions you didn't write, Mr. Ryan. I attached at Exhibit A1, I think it was sub E, all of the prior zoning decisions.
Yes.
As the building went back and forth between different uses. Some of the applications treated it as a non-conforming use and granted a special exception to change a non-conforming use from one to the other. And then in the more recent ones, they said, no, it's really more like a variance. But under either one, we think it's, to take a bar and a restaurant and convert it to office, it's a much better...
That a real jerk, isn't he?
I would never say that. Nor in private. We think it's just whether you treat it as a variance or a special exception, it's just such a less of an impact and a much better transitional use.
I just observed because there is the hardship component is higher than for a dimensional variance, but obviously
Sure.
variance relief has been given, so
Right.
there's some, the record would suggest that there are some issues with this property.
Right, and I suggest that even back in the 60s, the variance was granted. There was a recognition that given the land use changes that had occurred, it wasn't suitable to be a single-family dwelling anymore, and that was the basis for the original variance. And since then, things have just gotten even more commercialized around it.
Yeah, there's also obviously the minimum relief necessary to alleviate component, and then the adverse impact to the
Sure.
community.
And we think an office is the minimum relief compared to even keeping the bar and the restaurant. But with that, I'll call up Bo Erickson.
And sir, if you'll raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes. And spell your full name for me, please.
Yes, it's Bo, B-O, Erickson, E-R-I-X-X-O-N.
Bo, what is your position with the applicant, 115 Stratford Avenue, LLC?
I am the managing member.
And does 115 Stratford Avenue, LLC have an agreement to purchase the property at 115 Stratford Avenue, which is the subject of this application?
Yes, we do, and it is Exhibit A1.
And that's a redacted agreement of sale for the property?
Yes, it is.
And can you briefly describe your experience in land development matters such as this?
I've worked in land development for approximately 20 years. I've dealt with probably close to about 100 subdivisions, primarily in Delaware and Chester County.
And are you familiar with 115 Stratford Avenue and the surrounding area?
Yes, I am.
I want to focus on the existing conditions of the property. In our packet, this is exhibit. This is exhibit A1. I believe it's D, like dog. It's part of the application. So, referring to the existing condition plan of the property, can you describe the location and the conditions on the property?
Yes. The property, as we've stated, is very long and narrow, and it's 2.13 acres. That is very flat. It's all buildable, but it does have significant impact because of the commercial and the commercial and the commercial and the commercial across the street, and then just residential in the back of the property.
Does it have almost an acre of impervious coverage on it?
Yes, it does. Currently, the parking for the bar restaurant is shown here, and that is all paved and currently draining to the rear of the property.
And to your knowledge, does the property have any stormwater management controls or systems to handle that amount of large impervious area?
No, it does not. It all drains to a drain at the rear of the property.
And have you been advised that the property in its current condition with no stormwater management system may be contributing to stormwater issues off of the property?
Yes, I have.
And can you describe the significant features of the property that you're trying to preserve with the redevelopment plan?
Well, when I looked at this property, obviously we looked at it from all the different aspects of what could be developed. Single-family homes, keep the use, go to office, or have the mixed-use project that we actually have proposed. And by going in that route, we have the ability to preserve the tree line that exists on the northern end of the property, because if we cluster the carriage homes in this area, we can leave those trees there. Additionally, if we do the carriage homes, we can leave the trees at the rear of the property that I believe aid significantly to buffering the existing residential properties to our east.
And of course, the historic building.
Yes, historic building. We like to preserve. It has I think, a very attractive facade, but it is in its current state. It's in poor condition and deteriorating.
Let's focus for a minute on that building. Is it your understanding that that building was originally a residential mansion that dates back to 1909?
Yes.
And in the application we filed, as I mentioned to Mr. Ryan, there was a summary and copy of prior zoning hearing board approvals for the property. That's at A1E. Based on that information, the building was approved for a bar and restaurant use in the mid-1960s. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And based on that information, was there a failed attempt to convert the building for use as a spa?
Yes, there was.
And in connection with the efforts to convert the building to a spa, was there a substantial amount of interior demolition performed on the building?
Yes, they did. They went in and they started to take out some of the walls, some of the flooring, subflooring. So currently, the interior of the building is in very poor condition. There's some holes in the roof. So it is deteriorating, and it would be advantageous to either, save the building, as I'd like to do, or it's going to continue to deteriorate.
Now, we have some photographs that are in the board's packet at A2. I don't know if these will show up here, but I'd like you to go through these photographs, identify them, and comment on what they show.
Yes, this first photograph is a picture of a stone that is in the facade of underneath the cupola as you go into the Villa Stratford, and it says Villa Stratford 1909.
So that's the first photograph A, and then photograph B.
Photograph B is a picture of the southern corner of the property showing the Villa Stratford sign, and it shows that the windows are boarded up and the sign is at the top of the chimney.
Okay, photograph C.
Photograph C is a picture of the from the rear of the property into, I'm sorry.
Does everybody have this for photograph C? Okay.
Can I see that again? Would you?
This one, the front of
Yes.
the building? Yeah, this
Okay.
one got out of order.
This is where you entered the restaurant, right?
Yes.
Yes, this is where you entered the restaurant. And then in the middle of the pillars is where the stone dating back to 1909 is. And this is the facade. You can see the very attractive pillars, but unfortunately the building, you can see how they are rotting at the bases, and the building is deteriorating.
Okay, how about D? Is this just a wider view of the front?
Yes, this is a wider view that captures the entire facade.
And then how about E?
E is a picture of the side of the building taken looking north to south, and again shows the boarded up windows.
How about F?
Picture F is a picture taken from the rear of the property looking up past the existing mansion, basically looking from east to west.
And those, you can kind of pick up, it's faint there, the Stratford Shopping Center off in the distance.
Yes, looking at the Stratford Shopping Center.
Photograph G.
Photograph G is the front door, which is also boarded up, going at the main entrance into the old mansion.
And it's got a sign posted on there.
Yes, a sign posted that says "Keep Out."
Danger, keep out. Photograph H.
Photograph H is a picture from inside the building. You can see that the demolition was started by the people that were contemplating the spa use. They've demoed a lot of the walls. You can see some of the holes in the floor. Some of the subflooring has been removed. So in its current condition, it's not in good shape.
And is that representative of the other areas inside of the building?
Yes, it is.
Photograph J.
Photograph J is a picture of the parking lot taken from the other direction. Basically,
I or J? I think
Oh,
it's
I'm sorry,
I.
I checked off I prematurely. I. Thanks for keeping me on the straight.
So this is a picture taken from west to east, capturing the corner of the mansion to the right and looking back towards the existing trees that are at the eastern edge of our property.
Okay, now let's go to J. That's not J yet.
Okay. J is a picture of the commercial use that is immediately to our south, which is the,
Or to the west.
I'm sorry, yeah, to the west, looking from east to west, looking into the entrance of the Stratford Shopping Center. And what you see to the left, I believe, is the bank, or the entrance to the bank. It would be just to the left.
And let's go to the next one, K. That's that bank.
Yes, that is the bank that would be just south of the photo we just looked at, which is on the just north of Lancaster Avenue at the entrance to the Stratford Shopping Center.
How about L?
L is a picture looking from west to east at the existing trees that are on our property adjacent to the farms and the residential area of Farm Road.
You mean there are no farms there?
No, Farm Road.
Farm Road.
Yes.
And how about M?
M M is a picture of the northern boundary. These are the trees that line the property line between us and the commercial use to our north, and these are the trees that we would like to save along what was contemplated as the Windsor Avenue that was proposed to be a road, but has not been opened.
And then the last one, photograph N, like Nancy. This is from the looking to the south.
Yes, this is looking south at the bank, the Citizens Bank, with their drive-through, which is immediately south of our property.
And way off in the distance, that red awning, is that the Primo Hoagies on the other side of Route 30?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Let's, I think you testified on the, strike that. After the failed effort to turn the building into the spa, is it your understanding that the zoning hearing board later reaffirmed the use of the building for a bar and restaurant use?
Yes, I believe that was reaffirmed.
And despite that approval, the building has remained vacant?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, the existing conditions plan, you referred to it, that shows an unopened part of Windsor Avenue that straddles the common property line between the subject property and the adjoining property line to the north. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as you noted, that part of Windsor Avenue has not been opened, correct?
That is correct.
Now, before the property was surrounded by commercial land uses and zoning, was it contemplated that it would be part of the residential neighborhood to the east?
Yes, that is my understanding.
And that would be through the connection of Windsor Avenue all the way to Stratford Avenue?
Yes.
And in our package, at Exhibit A4, there's a series of historical atlas maps, and we've put some highlighting to help identify the area in question along the proposed Windsor Avenue extension. I'd like you to refer to that, and I'm going out of order. I've skipped A3. I'm going to come back to it. This is A4 in your package. I would like you to, this is a series of old atlas maps. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And it shows the development of the area from the early 1900s through the last one we have, I believe, is up to 1961.
Yes, it does.
And for the board's information, these are summarized on the cover sheet of your package too, but I'm going to have Bo go through them. And do these show that Windsor Avenue was indeed planned to connect through to Stratford Avenue?
Yes, that's what it shows.
And so you're looking, for example, at the 1913, and explain where the property is and what's highlighted in yellow there.
Yes, in yellow, the property is shown, Windsor going all the way through and connecting into Stratford Avenue.
And the property, it's changed shapes now, but the Villa Stratford building is here above the words Percy Colquitt.
That is correct.
And just go quickly through these each year and show us how the area changed over the years.
Okay. As you can see, there was a lot of residential and very light development.
Even along Lancaster Avenue.
Yes. And as...
Now page to 1919.
1919, we see more development along Lancaster Avenue. And Windsor, as contemplated, still looks very much the same.
And what's next? What year are you up to?
Then as we go from 1919 up to 1926, we see the addition of the Farm Road, which comes in off of Lancaster and goes into the planned Windsor Road and connects to in the northerly direction and connects up to Windsor Road.
So you can see on that plate that not all the lots in Windsor Farm neighborhood have buildings on them, but they're starting to get some buildings on them.
That is correct.
And you still have, to the north, you don't have the Stratford offices yet, and to the west, you don't have the Stratford Shopping Center yet.
That's correct. At this time, they still remain as residential use.
You go up to 1937.
In 1937, we see that the density along Lancaster Avenue has really intensified. we see that the homes along Farm Road have been added. The commercial use that is immediately to our north has not been introduced yet, and the additional commercial uses along Lancaster Avenue have not been introduced yet, nor is the Stratford Shopping Center shown on this plan.
And what's our next plate? 1948?
1948, that is the conditions remain very much the same. The commercial has not been added yet, but as we move into
1961 is the last one that was available.
And here we see that the intensity of commercial along Lancaster Avenue has firmly been established. The Stratford Shopping Center has been added, and the corridor really along Lancaster Avenue has become very much more commercialized.
And all of this time, Windsor Avenue is shown to go through while the residence is remaining. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And obviously, the atlases stop at 1961, but we know after that time, obviously, the commercial uses along that front on Lancaster Avenue were added. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And, of course, the Stratford offices to the rear. And now I'd like to switch to another exhibit, which is, now we're going back to A3 in your packet, and we have a larger one here. I'm referring to this, which is entitled, for the record, it's A3, it's aerial map of the property in the area. Can you walk the board through this? This is meant to show the zoning and the surrounding land uses. And I want to know for the record, I just noticed in your packet, A3, this piece of, this is the Citizens Bank building here to the, it would be to the south of the property. This little strip of the rear of the Citizens Bank building where the parking is and the driveway for the drive-through, that is that's zoned R4, right?
That is correct.
So that's the same color as that. So
Yes.
That's a little, I don't know how well it shows in your packet, but just remembering that, go through the
Yeah,
aerial.
exactly. If we look at this, if we start to the north, this, as we looked at the Atlas maps previously, was residential, has been converted to commercial. It is commercial, all office buildings. Then along Stratford Avenue, we have more additional commercial buildings. Catty corner from our property, directly across from our property is the shopping center, which obviously has high traffic. Immediately to our south is the Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and their garage faces our property. And this is an area where the property line is here. Our property, all the way to the south, is commercial. This part is residential. Further along...
Before you leave the Enterprise car rental, you said there's a garage there. What do they use that garage for?
this is where they prep the cars, fill it with fluids, clean the cars. So it's I would think, a fairly high impact use, and that's one of the main reasons why we don't think single-family homes would be appropriate in this highly intense commercial neighborhood.
Okay, keep going down the pike.
And then as we continue along Lancaster, everything to the south along Lancaster is commercial. Our next boundary is the Citizens Bank, which has a drive-through and a 24-hour ATM. And that, as George pointed out, is commercial along Lancaster Avenue, but they have, and a big part of their parking lot is in the residential component. So it's residentially zoned with a commercial use immediately adjacent to us. And then to the east are the properties on Farm Road that are zoned R4. And to the north is what was intended to be the connection of Windsor, but this has never been connected.
So on the diagram, sort of the yellowish hue is what remains zoned residential,
That is correct.
and the redder hues are commercial zoning districts of one type or another.
Correct. So the vast majority of the property and uses around us is commercial.
And just for the record, I may have said this in my opening, but the properties to the south along Lancaster Avenue, Route 30, and the properties to the north, they're zoned CO commercial, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's what our property is split zoned with, CO commercial?
That is correct.
So we're left as a little island or peninsula here that stayed as R4 for some reason and didn't go to CO?
Yeah, it did. It stayed with R4 zoning, but it's had a commercial use since the early 60s. So it's really behaved as commercial, even though it's been zoned residential.
On your property, can you show us where the commercial part is and where the residential part is again?
First, outline the shape of the property first.
Yep. Our property really is right here. Yep. And then this little strip here is commercial. So where our building sits, the southern part of it sits in commercial, and the the majority of the building sits in the R4.
Now, is this the only property on this stretch of Stratford Avenue between Route 30 and Eagle Road that has remained residential zoning on it?
Yes, it is. Everything else to the north and south and to the east has been converted to commercial.
Now, based on the split zoning of the property and the surrounding land uses, do you have an opinion as to whether the property in its present configuration, at least without the extension of Windsor Avenue, is suitable for single-family dwellings?
Yeah, my belief is that it's not. We very rarely do you see single-family homes up against commercial, and especially the commercial intensity of something adjacent to Lancaster Avenue, which is the major thoroughfare through this area, where you have a rental car place with a garage and a bank that has 24-hour access. So having children or single-family homes in this neighborhood, I don't believe is appropriate.
And
By
even-
single-family, are you talking about single-family detached?
Right.
Because
Yes.
you're going to have townhomes, those are single.
Right.
Proposing townhomes, so it's a
Yes.
single-family.
Single-family-
But it's detached is the
Detached.
thing that you think is not
Yes, and
viable.
I believe that the townhouses are a different type buyer, and I think that would be more appropriate, and they're further away from the adjacent
It's
properties.
certainly a different housing product, but from the point of view of the code, they're both single-family.
That's right.
Yes.
I think what we're saying is that, and Bo will talk about this when he talks about our proposed plan, but the way this can be clustered in the center of the property and the people who we would expect to come to a townhome want maintenance-free living. They don't want a yard. A single-family detached occupant wants a little bit of a yard and a space. So not only is this against residential or against commercial, we're basically surrounded by it, at least on three sides. So that's the gist of what we're getting at with that. Let's go to the proposed plan. In your packet, there's one at A1F, and then there's a colored rendering of it at A5, and that's what I have a bigger copy of, so we're going to put that up here. And can you describe this plan of redevelopment in general terms for the board?
Yes. This plan that we've developed is a mixed-use plan, and because of the impacts of the commercial that surround our property, I'm proposing that we take the existing structure that has the bar and restaurant use, convert that to an office use, and then at the rear of the property, centered in the middle, to build 8 carriage homes. This design allows for the tree line along the northern boundary to remain, it allows the trees that exist on the eastern boundary to remain, and by doing attached townhomes, we are able to keep the buildings further away from the residential properties that exist to our east, and we have the ability to build a berm and screen them from our new project.
And Chuck,
Excuse me, you refer to carriage homes and townhomes. Are they interchangeable terms? I thought they were different structures.
They are very, a lot of people use them and they interchange them. We will call these carriage homes because they are fairly wide, about 40 feet. Townhomes are generally 24, 20, 22 feet. So I like to refer to them as luxury carriage homes.
legally, they're probably a type of townhome, but the carriage home is, as Bo was saying, a bigger, high-end unit, I guess, for marketing
Definitely a
purposes.
better marketing tool.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, Chuck is going to talk about this, but while you're here, one of the advantages of density modification as opposed to R4 zoning, density modification requires restricted open space be devoted. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. And that, with this plan, we would develop a walking path for the residents where we have a dog walking trail along our northern boundary. That's about 700 feet long and provides for the active recreation and the open space that density modification calls for.
And of interest, perhaps, to the neighbors, the advantage of open spaces, as I said, it's restricted. You can't build other things in it, and it would always be preserved. Is that correct?
Yes, it would always be preserved, and it would also be very well maintained by a homeowners association, as opposed to detached single-family homes where the individual homeowner maintains their yard and property. You get different degrees of maintenance. With this type of community, you'd have a very high degree of professional maintenance. And I think in this unique zoned property, I think it would be ideal to keep it green and looking the best possible. And again, it transitions from the very heavy commercial on this side with a low-impact office building, and then the luxury carriage homes in the middle of the site.
Now, next in the packet is Exhibit A6. Is this just a rendering to show the general intent of what you would do with the former Villa Stratford building?
Yes, that's an artist rendering of how we would like to renovate the existing mansion and make it look as good and positive as it has in years past.
So it would keep its architectural charm and character.
Yes.
And next in the package,
Before we, have any idea of the kinds of office uses that this might be susceptible for? I know office use is a thing, but any idea of who might utilize this building?
It would be a professional company, something that would, I think, would be very attracted to this kind of unique building with its great location and aesthetic advantages over regular commercial space.
Mm-hmm.
so next in the package is Exhibit A7. Tell the board what this represents.
This is an artist rendering of a perspective view looking from basically here, our entrance, into the courtyard of the proposed carriage homes that are built in a horseshoe, centralizing all our traffic here and all the lights from our residents, so they are contained within our building, really minimizing or eliminating the impact of the neighbors to the east.
And A7 shows how you could do architectural concepts here that you can see how it complements the Villa Stratford building.
Yes, they would blend in with the existing mansion.
And what factors led you to believe that the proposed mixed-use development was the best land plan for this property?
Well, in reading the comprehensive plan for Radnor, I identified several items as far as preserving trees, view sheds, and historic resources. And looking at this unique shaped property, I thought this was the best way to transition from the heavy commercial use with a low-impact office building, and then to have the carriage homes in this area that would have minimal impact. They would also be an asset to the community. They'd be $1 million townhomes, and I think it would be a very effective transition from the commercial and abutting the existing residential.
And you touched on this before, but the mixed use kind of is a nod to the split zoning of the property. You've got a property that's got commercial zoning and residential zoning, so mixed use is consistent with that?
Yes, that's our firm belief. Both our land planner, Bob Hauser, myself, and Chuck Dobson, in reviewing it, think it's a very appropriate use for this property.
And you think this is also, with regard to the surrounding land uses, this is the best plan for the property?
I do. I think it's a very effective transition for the office park to our north, and we would have no real change against the enterprise, and we'd have no impact against the bank. So I think it's a very good transition, and this plan allows us to maximize our buffering against the existing neighborhood. So I think our impact with this project would be minimal on them as well.
Now, would the proposed office use have much less of an impact than a bar and restaurant use?
Yes, it would, because it would have it would not have the high impact traffic noise that a bar restaurant has on the weekends and at night.
And what about hours of operation?
Well, an office building would be, primarily 8 to 5, 8 to 6 during working hours. It would also not have the noise, the trash, smells, cooking that a bar restaurant. And depending on what kind of bar goes in there, that can obviously be more or less noise impact. If it was, like a Smokey Joe's type bar, that would have a more significant impact than some other bar establishments.
And some bars have, or bars and restaurants have very active banquet business, which can also be very impactful.
Yes, and a lot of banquet activities, they run late into the evening, and also have heavy impact during the holidays. And a office use would not have any of that traffic, and it also would complement if and when the residents at the townhomes or carriage homes would, if they had additional family and friends over a holiday or a weekend, the office building would probably not be in use. So they complement each other in that regard as well.
And you touched on this, but in your experience in this business, focusing now on the residential units, what type of buyer would be interested in these units?
Well, that's the other advantage of this, as opposed to if they were single-family homes, which would primarily attract families. This is a product that is marketed really to the empty nester. So you're not bringing school kids into this area, primarily professionals that are coming in. They want to have a maintenance-free lifestyle. So they are probably, many of them will have maybe a summer home, maybe in Florida in the winter. So it's someone that comes in and out when they desire it. They want the carriage homes to be well maintained and all the landscape around it to be maintained by a professional company. And there's not a lot of this product available. So we think this is an ideal location for it. They could be here. They can walk across the street and get a cup of coffee at the farmer's market. So we think it would be very desirable in this configuration, and there would be a good demand for that buyer. That buyer would also have minimal impact on the township, probably wouldn't have school-aged children, and everything in this community would then be run and managed by a homeowners association, so you would have no additional services that would be required.
For lack of a better word, this horseshoe-like configuration, does that have some advantages in terms of controlling impacts?
Yes, it does. As we said, everybody would come in to this community. They would drive in, and the garages and carports would be within each unit. So they would drive in, and all their traffic noise, their light, their car lights would basically be contained inside this horseshoe, and you wouldn't have any impact on the surrounding neighborhood. Versus if you had single-family homes, every driveway would, be angled and positioned differently, and therefore you would have that light pollution, and you would feel the impact of those people coming in and out, where here you would not.
How many units are there, sir?
There are 8.
And our engineer is going to be next. He's going to go into the specifics of the relief and some of the density calculations that we've done. That's all I had for Bo at this time.
I have a question. What's the story with Windsor Road? Who owns that, and who controls whether it ever gets opened or shut down for good?
As far as I know, it's a paper street. It's not been opened. We have not exhaustively researched. I don't believe the township has either of what the status of that is. We're not proposing to open it at this time.
Yeah, I think the last 3 times that someone's been in front of us, that street's come up, and no one ever. Yeah, it's there. I mean, it could be turned in by the township at some later date, or it might stay the way it is forever.
Yeah, we haven't investigated it at great length because we're hoping to proceed with this plan where we wouldn't have a need for that. I'd like to call Chuck Dobson.
Did you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your full name for the record.
Charles Dobson, Charles Dobson.
Chuck, can you describe your educational and professional background?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Drexel University.
Is that on?
I think it is. It is, yeah, I think it's on. Yes, I have a degree of Civil Engineering in 1994 from Drexel University.
And in the packet at Exhibit A8, is that a copy of your professional qualifications?
Yes, it is.
I'd like to offer Chuck as an expert in civil engineering and land development.
Thank you.
Chuck, are you familiar with the property?
Yes, I am.
And the proposed plan that was filed as part of this application, did you prepare that?
Yes, I did.
Since Bo has described the plan, let's go right into the requested relief that we're asking for. The density modification, the lot size variance. The proposed plan is designed to proceed under density modification, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And the proposed townhomes are a permitted use in the R4 district under density modification, correct?
Yes.
And density modification is allowed in the R4 only by conditional use approval by the Board of Commissioners, correct?
That is correct.
So that if we were to get this relief, the board isn't approving this plan, we still have to go to conditional use approval from the commissioners, who will decide if, once we get this variance, if we get this variance, then we still have to get permission then to proceed with density modification as part of a conditional use, correct?
That's correct.
And would the plan also require land development review and approval?
Yes, it would.
And now we have sought a variance from the 5-acre minimum lot size requirement of 280-92A4 to allow density modification, is that correct?
Yes.
And why are we seeking to proceed under density modification?
Well, the configuration of the property, the long, narrow length of it compared to its width, the proximity of the property with respect to the surrounding commercial uses, and also the desire to maintain the trees along the northern property line and the eastern property line, and also probably the most significant portion would be the desire to maintain and rehabilitate the existing structure to be used as office, lends itself to the use of the density modification.
And do you share in Bo's opinion that townhome units would be more suitable for the property than single-family detached dwellings because of the split zoning and because of the commercial uses and zoning surrounding the property?
Yes, I do. I think that from a broader perspective, if you look at some of the surrounding land uses that were identified in an earlier exhibit, this is a good opportunity to have a nice, smooth transition from what is a mainly commercial use to the west, and then moving over to an entirely residential use to the east. This provides a nice transition from a relatively low-impact office and then the townhouse developments that would mimic the appearance of the renovated office.
Just going to wait until later.
You mentioned that there are trees that you are preserving. Doesn't look like there are trees here.
Well,
Aren't those trees proposed?
Well, many of the trees are proposed. The rendering, what we've done is, and I don't know if you can see it on the exhibit, there are a variety of scallop shapes here along the eastern property line and also along the northern property line, and that basically represents walls that would be constructed to reduce the impact on the root zones of those mature trees. So the idea would be to use the existing trees to save them and then to augment those trees as part of a buffering exercise to not only contain the development into itself, but also to enhance the, or block some of the views from adjoining properties.
And Mr. Manny, the trees are also shown in the photographs at A2. It was L and M, and as we testified, they're primarily along the property lines. There are some other trees in the center of the property, and I believe there were some taken down by the prior or the current owner, and there's a fine in place for that. Any trees we do take down, we'll have to deal with the Shade Tree Commission on, but we are trying to preserve these ones along those two sides.
But it doesn't look like healthy trees, from the picture, the photographs. Are they?
They're green. I'm not an arborist. When we go to the Shade Tree Commission,
okay.
We'll have to have an arborist, and he'll tell us. We would like to save them instead of just clear cutting them if they are healthy. Now, in Exhibit A9 in the package, Chuck, there is I just copied out of the general code online the density modification provisions from the ordinance, and I just want to focus on Section 280-90A, which sets forth the intent and the objectives for density modification. Can you explain whether you believe that, despite the fact that we do not have 5 acres, whether you have an opinion as to whether the proposed development is consistent with these objectives and why?
Well, there are 3 primary objectives in Section 280-90A. The first is to encourage conservation and use of open space in new residential development. And I think the configuration that's before the board tonight shows that pretty clearly. My understanding is it's targeted to elder population, so they wouldn't necessarily be engaging in things that would be ball fields and whatnot, but they do have a nice green area, dog walking path, and there's significantly augmented buffering around there, which would enhance, I think, the open space in perpetuity.
And one of the advantages of open space, as I commented on in the ordinance, it has to be restricted. You can put something like a gazebo and a path in there, but you can't build other accessory structures and things like that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that would be a benefit to preserving areas adjacent to the neighbors?
Yes.
And, okay, keep going on with the, and I should note that R4 base zoning does not require restricted open space. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, go on to the next objective.
Then the next objective is to encourage land development which preserves trees and natural topography, prevents soil erosion, and promotes the best interest of the township from an aesthetic, ecological, and natural resource standpoint. I think we've testified pretty heavily regarding the existing trees and our desire to save them along the northern and eastern property boundaries. I think one of the things that this configuration does lend itself to would be actually getting into the preservation of natural topography. And from an ecological standpoint, it's been well documented that this property is within an area that is experiencing, it's actually at the headwaters of an area that's experiencing flooding from a stormwater standpoint. The configuration as it's shown here on the exhibit is very efficient for the capturing of any stormwater from proposed impervious surfaces. And I think it also allows for a drastic over-design of any proposed stormwater facilities, which would greatly reduce the rate and volume of runoff that would come from this property. The objective would be to do whatever we could on this property to alleviate any of the drainage concerns that some of the residents have in the area that this property actually contributes to.
And the aesthetic objective, is that furthered by taking this old dilapidated building and restoring it to its former grandeur?
Yes, I believe it is. I think that's a very important aspect of the project.
And then go on to the third objective.
The third objective is to encourage attractive arrangements of dwelling by permitting design and layout of dwellings to be closely related to the physical characteristics of the site in harmony with surrounding tracts. As was testified prior, the tract itself is relatively level. It does fall somewhat from the west to the east, which contributes to the drainage problem that I mentioned earlier. The arrangement of the buildings on this particular tract is very, I think it's ideal. If you were to try to put a building of this shape on a tract that was severely sloped, I think you'd be really working against yourself, if you would. So I think that it lends itself quite nicely to that. And as far as in harmony with the surrounding tracts, since the surrounding tracts are mostly commercial, well, all commercial to the west and to the north and to the south, and just residential to the east, I think, again, we have a kind of a transition here where we're trying to identify and promote a land use pattern that is somewhat in harmony with that. And so the transition from office use adjacent to Stratford Avenue to a carriage home, an 8-unit carriage home use, and then transition ultimately to the single-family dwelling uses to the east, I think it makes sense to me.
And it talks about the design and layout of the dwellings to be located or related to the physical characteristics. This fits in with the long and narrow and irregular shape of the property, correct?
Yes, it does.
Now, contrary to what the name density modification might imply, the proposed plan does not seek to increase density over that which would be permitted under the base R4 zoning. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And to illustrate this point, have you prepared a chart to show what is allowed under the base R4 zoning and under density modification?
Well, I have done an analysis of that.
And that's at Exhibit A10 in the packet. And I'm going to put this up. This is just an enlargement of that. I want to run through this. First, can you compare the density that is allowed under R4 with that is allowed for density modification in the R4 district?
Yeah, the R4 zoning district allows for lots to have a minimum size of 7,000 square feet, which translates to just a little over 6 units per acre.
That's the left column of this exhibit is the base R4 zoning, and the middle column is the R4 with density modification. These are right out of the zoning ordinance, correct?
Yes, they are.
And the final column is our proposal?
Yes, it is. I think it's interesting to contrast because at 6.2 units per acre and a little over 2 acres, the math tells you that you can get 13 units by yield. I think that's important to note because the tract itself is unconstrained by wetlands or steep slopes or any other environmental conditions that would traditionally limit the ability to achieve the maximum density. With respect to the R4 density modification, the code clearly stipulates that it is limited at a total density of 5.5 units per acre. And of course, doing the math again, you're looking at a total of 11 units that would be possible. In the third column to the right here, as indicated, the use is to provide for 8 attached single-family dwellings, which is below either density. And I think that in discussions with the applicant, they felt that the preservation of the historic dwelling on the property was a significant component of kind of meeting the overall intent of the density modification.
Now, we've heard at some other sketch plan meetings we've been at from some of the neighbors that, oh, you're just trying to do too much here. You're trying to preserve the building and have an office, and that you're trying to have these residential units. Did you do an alternate density calculation that's on the plan that's attached to the exhibit that would basically take out of the tract area the area that would be occupied by the building and all of the 40 parking spaces that would be required for that building if we convert it to office?
Yes. And do you have a copy of that?
Yeah, that's in Exhibit A1, our zoning application, at Exhibit F. That's the last exhibit on the zoning application. That's a uncolored version of the plan you prepared?
Yes, it is. Yeah, basically what we did was we took an analysis of the tract, and if you take the existing building, I'll move this exhibit up so we can see it. If you take the existing building and basically assign the area that's the 40 parking spaces that are assigned to it, and remove that from the tract, then you're left with a certain portion of the tract, which if you apply the density modification, basically gets you to the density of 8 units.
9 units.
Excuse me, 9 units.
And we're proposing 8.
That's correct.
Now, let's go back to the chart. So even if we penalize ourselves for keeping the footprint of the building and the all of the parking that's required, we still would show a yield of 9 units, and we have 8.
That's correct.
Going back to the chart, as to building coverage, R4 allows how much?
R4 allows 30% building coverage.
And what would density modification allow?
Density modification allows for a bonus of 5% or 35%.
And again, we had heard maybe your plan is too dense, but are we even anywhere approaching the 30% that's allowed under the base for R4 zoning for the building coverage?
No, we're not.
And what do we have on our plan?
19%.
Now, what is our intention regarding impervious coverage for the property?
The intention is to stay below the R4 zoning threshold of 40%.
And even though 45 would be allowed in density modification?
Yes,
So we're not seeking for that bonus either.
that's correct.
As to building height, tell us what building height is allowed for each?
The building height in the R4 base zoning district or the density modification is the same. Building height is capped at 35 feet, and that would be adhered to with this proposal as well.
And so it doesn't matter if you do density modification or base R4 zoning, you're still allowed 35 feet.
That's correct.
In height.
There is no bonus for height.
Now, let's just put this back up. With regard to setbacks that density modification would require, could you contrast that generally with what R4 requires?
Yes, the R4 requires, for traditional R4, you can go down to effectively a 12-foot setback on the yard with an aggregate of 30. With the density modification, any area abutting a residential zone requires a minimum of a 25-foot buffer. So immediately the minimum yard setback is doubled effectively.
And for the entire tract, there's also a building setback, correct?
Yes,
And that's, you wouldn't have that in R4, correct?
that's correct.
And under base R4, am I to understand you could have accessory structures 3 feet from the property line?
That's my understanding, yes.
But you can't have that in density modification
That's correct.
because of the buffer and the building setbacks?
Yes.
And I think we touched on this, but just to confirm, so density modification requires restricted open space, but R4 does not, correct?
That's correct.
And how much open space does density modification require?
Density modification requires a minimum of 15%, which are called qualifying open space, which is actually identified on this particular plan as areas outside the required 25-foot buffer. I think that's important to note. But it basically is comprising the northern portion of the green space up and along, including the walking trail, and that is at about 22%.
So 22% you're proposing, and the ordinance says that the buffer is on top of that,
That's correct.
and we've honored that.
Yes.
So we have the buffer and the 22%.
Yes.
And let's move on now to one of the more, what I would call technical dimensional measures. You mentioned that you need a buffer adjacent to residentially zoned properties, and we had pointed out before that the Citizens Bank property, the parking area and the drive-through lane, the rear part of that is actually still zoned R4. Have we asked for some relief just in that area, abutting that property line?
Yes, we have.
And, but we have not asked for any relief along the Farm Road property line, correct?
That's correct.
What relief are we asking for along the Citizens Bank property?
Well, the relief is pretty straightforward. The relief is to allow decks or patios, walking paths, effectively outdoor living space for the units that abut the southern property line to project into the required 25-foot buffer. The code states that the buffer is required to a residential zone, but although this is zone residential, the use, in fact, is not.
So the building would still honor the 25 feet, even though we're next to the commercial, but we're just asking for accessory structures to extend a little further into that buffer.
Correct.
Okay. The office use of the historic building, I think we touched on this, so I'll try to go through this quickly. It is approved for a bar and a restaurant, is that correct?
Yes.
And we're proposing to convert it to an office use?
Yes.
Now, as I noted earlier, the building is split zoned. It's partially located, and now I'm saying the building itself. The building itself is partially located in the CO commercial district,
Yes,
and
it
the
is.
balance is R4?
Yes, it is.
So by converting, if we were to get permission to convert this building to office use, would the CO part of the building actually become a conforming use?
Yes, it would.
And the bar and the restaurant is not a conforming use in the CO district, correct?
Correct.
Now, given the condition of the building, the size of the building, the split zoning, the location, the surrounding land uses, do you have an opinion as to whether that building is suitable for single-family attached dwelling or detached dwelling use that would be permitted in the R4 part of the building?
In my opinion, it is not.
And Mr. Ryan asked me earlier about the parking, but since you're a sworn witness, can you explain how much parking is proposed here and how it meets the requirements?
Certainly. The proposed gross floor area of the office use is 10,000 square foot. The code identifies that only 80% of that is used for parking availability or for parking calculations, so you're looking at 8,000 square foot. And if you have one space per 200 square feet, we're looking at 40 spaces. Those spaces are effectively identified as all the spaces that are to the west of, I would say, where I guess the property line moves along a north-south direction, effectively right behind the existing building. So there's 40 spaces to the west of this line. Additionally, there are 2 spaces per unit required for each of the townhomes, or excuse me, the carriage homes. And each of these carriage homes will have a 2-car garage, as indicated as such. The plan does go, at least at this level, to a certain extent to delineate them, and certainly any future plans will explore that in greater detail. Additionally, there are 6 overflow parking or guest parking spaces immediately to the west of the proposed carriage building. There's 2 along the northern leg of the building, and then there's 4 along the southern leg of the building.
So you're by your calculation, you have 6 more than you need.
Yes, sir.
And let's move on to the, and these are some of the ones that I applied for, maybe that we weren't sure if we needed relief because they're existing conditions, but the historic building, we showed on Exhibit A2 how it's in the setbacks. It's not Exhibit A2, it's Exhibit A1 sub D, the existing conditions plan. You can see the building shown in the building setbacks there, correct?
Yes.
And so if we do density modification, you explained that there's a perimeter building setback requirement and a buffer requirement.
Yes.
Now, in the past, the building did get variance relief to be in these setbacks that are shown on the existing plan. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
And are we proposing any additions to this building?
No, there are no additions proposed. There may be some minor modifications with respect to a stair tower along the northern portion of the building, but no modifications or extensions.
None that would make the encroachment into the setback any greater?
That's correct.
And let's put the site plan back up, A5. We have noted the density modification we're seeking to proceed under. There's a 25 feet building setback, so that would apply to both property lines in question, is that correct?
That's correct.
The property line abutting the Enterprise Car Rental Agency to the south, and then the line abutting the Citizens Bank, it would be to the west of the bank building?
Correct. The line abutting the Enterprise Car Rental is 20 foot, and that's in accordance with the zone that it's located in. The setback line adjacent to the Citizens Bank would be 30 feet, but there's also a 25-foot buffer within that 30 foot.
So we are just seeking relief to allow the building to remain in those setbacks, correct?
That's correct.
And do you see any detrimental impact to leaving it that way?
Not in its current location, no.
Another technical one. Back to the existing condition plan, which was, again, A1 at sub D. Is there parking in the front yard setback along Stratford Avenue?
There is parking along the front yard setback of Stratford Avenue. The parking is identified. It's to the easternmost, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces and a portion of an eighth space located in the front yard.
And there's a code provision, 280-105F, that says you shouldn't have parking in the front yard setback, correct?
That's correct.
So the property is non-conforming to that requirement?
Yes.
At the closest point, approximately how close are those spaces to the Stratford Avenue right-of-way?
They're approximately about 3 to 4 feet.
Now, under the proposed plan, how many spaces or portions of spaces would be in the front yard setback for Stratford Avenue?
There are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7 spaces, not entirely 7 spaces.
And you're moving them further back from the Stratford Avenue right-of-way, is that correct?
Yes.
Approximately how much further back?
The existing setback is, as I indicated, 3 to 4 feet. The new setback will be closer to 12 feet.
So by doing that, you're reducing the degree of the nonconformity to the front yard setback.
Yes.
And have you calculated, if you took the total area of parking spaces that are currently in the front yard setback for Stratford Avenue, approximately how large would that be?
About 2,700 square feet.
And if you did that same calculation for the proposed plan, what would the total area of the remaining parking spaces in the front yard setback for Stratford Avenue be?
Approximately 1,600 square feet.
So you're reducing the nonconformity in 2 ways. You're pulling it back further from Stratford Avenue, correct?
Yes.
And you're reducing the overall amount of paving in the front yard setback.
That's correct.
Does this, keeping those spaces there, does that have any issues, like with sight distance or anything like that?
It does not affect sight distance along Stratford Avenue or sight distance for the proposed entrance onto Stratford Avenue.
So do you see any detrimental impact to keeping those?
I do not.
And that helps us provide the required parking?
Yes.
Now, the last bit of relief in the ordinance, it's 280-109. I think this applies to all properties in Radnor Township. It limits the height of fences to 6 feet and then 4 feet for the front yard in an R4 district. We're proposing an 8 feet high fence around this property. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And what conditions of the property or the surrounding area are giving rise to this request?
In discussions with the applicant, there was concern that because of the proximity to the commercial uses to the north and the commercial uses to the south, there is it's effectively open space that can be accessed by pedestrians and vehicles at any time. Furthermore, the commercial use to the south is bounded to the south by Lancaster Avenue, which is obviously a major thoroughfare, which encourages a tremendous amount of traffic, both pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, and automobile traffic. And their concern was the ability of somebody who just happens to wander into either of those uses to simply wander onto the property. And it was felt that that fence was necessary to not only help augment the buffering that's required, but also provide the necessary security as well.
And do you see any detrimental impact associated with a higher fence at this location?
No, not in my opinion.
That's all I have for Chuck at this time. That's our case in chief. I'd like to have my exhibits moved into the record.
I have a quick question on the impervious calculation. You've taken assumption that the parking lot will only get half coverage versus full coverage, and that you noted on your plans you would talk to the township engineer. Has the township engineer gotten back to you?
I don't think your microphone.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not, it is on. You have a note on, what exhibit was it? It's it's your site plan. It is
A1F.
A1F, that you're going to be talking to the township engineer about the impervious with regard to the paving. Did he get back to you on that?
I have not heard any feedback from the engineer on that.
So you don't know if it's a value of 0.5 or if it's a full value?
We believe it's, well, the issue is, for this board, we haven't asked for any relief from impervious coverage. So we believe we're going to receive a determination from the zoning officer and from the township engineer as we proceed with the conditional use and the land development that that's going to be 50% at a minimum. It may be more. If we don't get that relief,
Then you got to come back here.
We'd have to come back
back
here.
here.
Anything, any relief that you don't ask for tonight, we can't
Right.
grant.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if you don't ask for impervious relief,
Exactly. And we're not asking for it. We,
Well, you
good-
do have a
it-
catch-all, though, and I think it would be important, assuming the board were to approve this, it's going to be tied to specific ordinance
Right.
provisions and nothing else.
right.
That's
That catch-all
assuming-
was just in case one of you came up with something that I missed, but if you want to specifically state
Yeah.
nothing
and
else is
good, if we do
granted.
pass this, it'll specifically only address these 7 issues that you brought up.
Right.
Nothing else.
Understood, and specifically, we understand about the impervious, that's sort of our burden to deal with that, and we're getting no relief from that.
Right. Or anything else that might pop up if we pass this that you may run across.
Correct.
Through all the other places that you have to hit.
George, is that front also that 8 feet fencing, or doesn't it look like a jail boundary?
Right now, that's what we're proposing in the front. If the board made a condition to lower
I'm
it,
sorry, I didn't hear what type of fencing?
I should have Bo speak to this. Bo, what type of fencing are you thinking about?
Yes, we're proposing it'll be a wrought iron fencing, similar to some of the large estates up along Eagle Road. I think it'll set the property off against the commercial that we're surrounded by, and I think it would look
Do
very
you think
appropriate.
do you think you need it on the upper side? Do you need a fence like that that runs along, which would be Windsor Avenue? I mean, you have Windsor Avenue, which is the buffer, and then you have the other parking lot, which is another buffer. I might see it along the lower part, where Lancaster Avenue is, because you have, it's all commercial. But I don't necessarily know that that's something you might need where you're up against,
I can see where you'd want it.
huh?
I can see where you'd want it,
Yeah,
because of the office building.
Yeah, exactly. And really, at any time of the day, somebody could be parked in here. I'm sure that the office buildings have probably night cleaning and different people that are in those buildings. So just to have a very attractive fence against that commercial use, I think would be an advantage for the homeowners of this project.
Does it have to be 8 foot high? That's negotiable.
That's negotiable.
So that was our case in chief. I had asked if our exhibits could be made part of the record.
Okay. Any questions?
The only question I have is, you talked about, I guess, decks protruding into the side yard setback. The building will not.
Correct.
Is that correct?
And only along the Citizens Bank property.
Right.
We're not asking for any relief along Farm Road. That's going to be much more than the setback and the buffer.
How big are those decks? How much will you encroach?
How much will you encroach?
Bo?
No more than 15 feet. So, because we're probably going to have a walkway that goes there. But again, it's the requirement is because...
A 15-foot deep deck?
At the most.
And so if that's the case, what will be the distance from the line to the end of the deck? What do you have there now, minus 15 feet?
That would be...
25. Yeah,
It's 25, so you...
it's 25, so you're looking for a 10-foot variance, a 10-foot relief? No, he's right on the line, and it's 25 feet. He wants to encroach 15 feet, right? So he's looking for a 10-foot relief, right? 10, 15, 10? Yeah. Well, that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's 15 feet. If he's
15 feet,
25,
yeah.
He's encroaching 15, he's 15.
And only along there, along the
I understand.
bank parking lot.
Mhm.
Can it be reduced?
I think that's something we could address through land development.
Well, actually, no, we'd have, if we're
No,
giving a
that
variance.
that's addressed here.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman.
Can we compromise on 12? And again, it's the bank, their parking lot is 3 feet off the property line. So, and for us to be giving them a lot of buffering, there's a grade change there. If you could give us 12, that would suffice. And the grade we'll grade that out and screen it and make sure that there's no impact.
John?
I was going to ask Mr. Chairman if we could meet briefly in executive session before we proceed with the community participation.
Okay, suppose we take,
Excuse me.
yes.
Our neighborhood has waited here for hours. Could we have neighborhood comment
I've
No,
asked
we-
for an executive session.
We won't be long. We won't be long. I mean, it's,
Already lost two, and I think one person wouldn't let her object.
I understand, ma'am, but you want us to be able to talk to you, to address this issue in an intelligent way. Okay, so we won't be long, and we're here too. It's not like, it's not like you're here and we're not. So, and we're trying to make it so that we can address your concerns as well as, their desires to have this done.
Mr. Chairman,
We'll be back by 9:30. That's about 8 minutes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I also was given a note by, it looks like a Darla Demaro. She had to leave, and this is a letter in opposition. I told her that I would show it to the applicant, and then I would submit it to the board. As to whether the board will accept it or not, that's up to you. But she did hand me this note, and perhaps Mr. Brosman can, it's a statement of opposition from this to Mrs. Demaro, and I will
Okay.
hand it to the board when we come back from executive session, and what happens, happens.
She's third generation.
929. Okay, Mr. Bozeman, you have something to say before we go to public comment?
I just wanted Bo to clarify 2 points. One about the proposed accessory structures along the Citizens Bank property, and 2 about the type of fence.
Yes, the accessory structures are shown on the plan, and they don't protrude more than 10 feet into the buffer area. And the fence that we are proposing is on the plan. It's an estate-style fence, and it's aluminum, black, very much along the lines of the other attractive fences you can see along the main line.
What about the front side?
We're proposing an 8-foot fence along the front, but that's something we can negotiate.
Can you offer that 4 feet fence in the front?
If it would serve the board, yes.
Is there any comment from?
Mr. Chairman, we might want to deal.
Want to read?
Yeah, I can.
Is this?
We have a note that was provided by Mrs. DeMauro, who had to leave. I'd like to just quickly take an opportunity. I had a contact through the township of an unsigned email in opposition. I don't know if the people who submitted that are here, but we cannot, as a matter of evidence, take unsigned emails for any purpose. And frankly, if we start doing that and appeals get taken to the court and media, the Court of Common Pleas is going to look at us very, very askance. So unfortunately, that's a rule that we simply have to follow, that we don't take unsigned emails. So if you have it, you can always type it out on your email, but then sign it and give us a hard copy or a PDF or something like that. That's a constraint that we simply have to observe.
Okay. What I have is respectfully submitted. Due to the family obligations, I must leave before the conclusion of tonight's meeting, but I'd like to register my opposition to many aspects in the overall plan presented for Stratford Avenue property. Sincerely, is it DeLuca DeMauro? Darla, okay. 307 Windsor Avenue of Wayne. Okay, saw that?
I just want to note my objection for the record.
Okay, very good. Okay, the only thing I ask is let's try not to be redundant, please.
I do have one further question. What is the distance from the furthermost eastern end of the buildings to the property line? Yes.
45 feet.
45, thanks.
Joyce, may I ask you a question? Did you have any meeting with the community?
I'll let Bo answer that. He did.
Yes, I've had a couple of meetings with the homeowners along Farm Road. Yes, I met with them prior to submitting the plan.
How did they respond?
They responded, some of them responded okay, but some of them do not like the plan. I think some of them are here in the audience today, but I try to describe the advantages of this plan versus other plans, but I think some of them have some concerns that they've drawn conclusions on. I don't concur with them, but I'll let them speak for themselves.
Did you take any of their concerns into the final?
Oh, absolutely, many. The biggest concern I heard was that they did not want this community to connect into their community. And that the initial time we met with the board, there was some comment that they wanted us to connect to the neighborhood, but the 2 residents that would be the most impacted that live on the north and south side of Windsor were very adamant, and they asked that we don't connect. So incorporating that feedback, came up with this plan, and we think this plan safeguards their properties to the best extent that we can.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm James Higgins. You need to swear me in? I'm not going to testify. I'm the commissioner for the district in which the
Doesn't he have to be sworn in? Is there a reason?
I think you do have to be.
I'm sorry, Mr. Higgins, you need to be sworn in.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name for the record, please.
James Higgins, Radnor Township Commissioner. I'm not going to testify. I was asked by the Schreibers, who live at 20 Farm Road, to deliver the email that Mr. Ryan referred to, and I have a signed copy. Mr. Brosman has already seen it, and I know he'll object to it, but I'm not going to testify because, as we all know, this matter in a different form will come before our Board of Commissioners as an application for density modification, conditional use, and subdivision land development ordinance review. So,
You may have, Mr. Higgins, so I can read that into the record, please.
And I just want to object to any letters when the people are not here. I believe I have a right to cross-examine the people, and I don't know if the statements, I have a right to find out, where they live, to verify that, and to cross-examine them about their statements. So I would object that these be made part of the record and be considered by the board.
I think that my understanding is that they could be entered into the record and given the weight that they are due. I will be blunt that it is always far better for somebody who is protesting or wishing to otherwise participate as a party to be here and to be able to answer questions and receive questions from the board and also from the other side. But there are cases that say a letter can be submitted for party status. But again, the weight of a letter is, in my view, much, much less than being here. And we absolutely, under no circumstances whatsoever, for any purpose, can we accept unsigned emails.
that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you.
I'm going to read it, just so we know, okay? And as our solicitor suggested, it'll be given the weight and the impact that someone who cannot be cross-examined. The Radnor Township Zoning Board, we live at 20 Farm Road, which is the last home on the left of Farm Road, directly abutting the Stratford property. We have seen the sketch plan and met with Bo at our home to discuss the plan and have him see what the development would look like from our perspective. After reviewing the plan and discussing this at length with our neighbors, we are opposed to the proposed development. We have a number of concerns. Number one, impact on stormwater. Despite having a significant stormwater retention system in our backyard, we experience significant flooding even during light rainfall. We have installed 2 sump pumps in our basement, and they run constantly during rainstorms. There's a catch basin at the low point on the Stratford property behind the wooden fence at the end of the driveway. There is running water off the property into that catch basin even during dry weather, indicating a significant flow of water off the Stratford site. In rainstorms, it is significantly higher volume. We believe the flooding on our property is a direct result of the runoff from the Stratford property. Our concern is that the size and the scope of the proposed development, there will be a dramatic impact on stormwater, even with a retention system in place. There are significant amounts of clay on our property, and I assume there's also clay in Stratford. This makes it difficult for water to be absorbed, which we have witnessed in our own backyard. Density. The proposed plan calls for 8 connected townhouses and an office building on about 2 acres. The increase in car traffic, noise, and overall activity, we believe, would be an extreme and not in keeping with the character of Farm Windsor community. We oppose any changes from the current R4 zoning. We also are concerned that the number of variances being requested, 7, is an indicative of the developer trying to do too much to shoehorn this project onto the property. Building height and perspective. We understand that 35-foot high is allowable. However, we are concerned about the ultimate realized height. Because of the slope of the Stratford property down the Farm Road, standing at grade level on our lot is probably between 5 and 6 feet lower than grade at the high point of Stratford site. The realized height by sight line would be over 40 foot. And this does not consider the expected buildup of the site prior to construction, which we understand commonly occurs. In addition, given the proposed sketch plan and the orientation of the townhouses on the right side of the horseshoe, this perspective, along with the realized height of the building, concerns us because of our view would literally be hundreds of feet of length of townhouse facade and over 40 feet of height. This, we believe, will create a monolithic appearance of a building of great mass, like a fortress. And this would detract significantly from the character of the adjoining neighborhood, which is comprised entirely of older single families of homes on 1/3 of an acre. Sincerely, Eric and Amy Schreiber. Sure you can. Did I say that too fast? Yeah. Anyone else have anything to say? Please? You'll do fine.
My name is Leslie Morgan.
You need to be sworn on, please.
When you do solemnly swear or affirm, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do affirm.
State your name, please.
Leslie Morgan, 12 Farm Road, Wayne, Pennsylvania. Before I begin, can I point out one mistake? On your new survey, though, the two before that.
Talking to the mic, or no one at home is going to know you're talking.
Sorry, two before. In all your other material that you submitted before your land use plan, you identified my property as me owning it, as I have for 9 years. Now it is Mr. and Mrs. Bryan's, who died over 10 years ago at age 97. And though I think Henry is a ghost in my house, he does not own or live in my house. This is our neighborhood. And I also have handouts.
You need to hand one also to the
I
applicant.
will, no problem.
We don't mark this, John.
I guess, Ms. Morgan, is this going to be, do you want these as individual exhibits or just as a packet, which we could label?
I've never done this before.
But let's do it as a packet, John.
Okay.
Because we made it
Whatever
more.
you think. Thank you. I have an extra one as well.
So we
Okay.
would, this packet from Ms. Morgan would be Exhibit P1. I do notice that it has the unsigned email, but since that email has been read and has been delivered as a signed copy, I don't think it's defective any longer.
Okay.
But it's a
I-
signed copy that's the authentic copy.
I have also included signed copies of my entire neighborhood. I have included in the P1 package 2 copies, one dated April 7th, 2013, and one dated September 25th, 2006, with our entire ownership group of approximately 25 families in unanimity against any kind of attached dwellings. We want to keep this R4, and we have worked with different applicants, as you might have heard them through the last 10 years. We worked and approved a restaurant use, and we worked and approved the spa medical use, and we worked and approved the current mortgagee, longtime owner, his restaurant use. So we are very, our folks are willing to work with people who want to develop this property. We also have met with Mr. Erickson, and we told him right off the bat we would work with him. We wanted single-family homes. In terms of that, I'd like to follow sort of my thoughts. And I'd like to start with that I'm calling this, and my neighborhood is calling this, the 80-20 plan. What we see in the plan appears to be asking for 8 residences on basically 1 acre.
There's a hand mic. You can use that if you'd like.
Oh.
There you
okay,
go.
Thank you.
Is it on? There's a switch that says on and off. You're on.
Hello.
There you go.
Okay, so we look at the plan, the concept plan, in this form, and if we go like this, you've got 1 acre. And so one of the things that we don't understand is how you put a density modification overlay and then ask for 8 townhouses on 1 acre, and then we're told that the math of the density bonus is actually 5.2 units per acre, and somehow, or 6.2 units per acre, where R4 would be, no, what is it?
It's 5.5.
5.5 units in density modification.
Yes, in R4.
Yes. And so, at the end of the day, the math is so confusing, we don't understand it. All we see here is asking for density modification and a wealth transference from our neighborhood. Our neighborhood, if I may, is 12 Farm Road here, and then the in between the Dersimonians of 16 Farm, 16 Farm in between the Schreibers of 20 Farm, the backyards as they currently stand, across the street that looks up and looks through, and then I'd like to go down to the fourth row and see right along here is Farm Road, right along here is Farm Road, looking from the pine tree stands that were supposedly taken down, these pine trees that are not taken down on the survey. They say taken down. They're alive, as we can see today. So they would be taken down. They were put there during the Cheftel era so that they could have a restaurant use, and they would shade us. So that would be taken down. And then we have the view from Lancaster here. That would be fenced off. And we have the view of citizens to the site. And that's how the fire trucks would go in, but maybe that day they couldn't. And then the pine trees again, and here's the Villa Stratford. So we've gone to all the meetings. I'm sorry that some of the people are not here in person. Some had to leave early. But we are unanimously opposed to this plan. We feel that it is an 80-20 plan because you're taking 1 acre when the density modification calls for 5 acres in R4. So 1 over 5 is 20%. So that's where we got the 20 for the 80-20 plan. And then the 80% is, I'll get to that in a little bit, but we believe there's a huge wealth transference because we have, unlike other areas located in R5 where there are townhouses and plenty of new plans coming on board, so there will be plenty of new supply. You don't have houses like ours that will be impacted. You already have multi-unit, older, some of them are even subsidized housing where they put townhouse recently, such as Wicklow. You might have seen that plan. Adelberger Florist, they back up to very old multi-unit already attached housing and apartment kind of housing. And then we have the Bloomingdale litigation that went on for years, and that's going to be like 0 lot line houses, and that's next to, again, multi-unit apartment kind of houses. So this would impact our kind of houses. Our houses range from $650,000 to the Shanes probably at $2.5 million, and they would all be impacted. And so, especially along here, where our backyards and all the back of our houses would wake up, instead of what we wake up today, we wake up to open space, basically, which we've enjoyed 100 years, or close to 100 years. Mine's a 1920 build. We would have townhouses, a wall of townhouses 40 feet high, 35 feet high, and this is what I would wake up to. So when they say there's no impact, and when Bo says that we didn't like it, I think that's maybe a little disingenuous. Not only do we not like it, we can't stand it. And we thought of bringing legal counsel today, but we got such good news from the Planning Commission last meeting, who asked this plan to be pulled and to have a single family with a centralized drive developed and to work with us. That didn't happen, so we're here tonight. We think there's a big wealth transference. We don't think that there's a real need for townhouses there. I don't think that people are standing in line to buy townhouses. Wicklow, that I know took a long time to develop, has $1 million townhouses, about maybe 4 blocks away across Lancaster down there near the middle school. And about 60% of that development is still retained by its investors. So I'm not sure that says a lot of success for $1 million townhouses in Radnor. That being said, to each his own. In the R5 area where townhouses have been developed before, none of them have received density modification. I'm not sure the whole background of density modification, but as I understand it, it was developed to sort of have a win-win. The developer could get a little more, and the site would look better and more efficiently laid out so that there was a lot of open space. This is not really open space that we can see. We don't see that we're getting bonuses to having this developed because the code doesn't even allow it to be developed. It's 5 acres, yet it's 1 acre okay? So I don't understand why sometimes I'm even here tonight. And as I understand the SALDO regulations, it's a requirement of any subdivision to dedicate open space anyways, and I believe the number is 15%. So I think that the giving is already going to be required no matter what. We are not opposed to an office space if you would like to move I think he wants to move his company there in the offices. We would welcome them. We have neighborhood parties. We invite all our neighbors. We have good relations with both John Fuchs, and we also have good relationships with Dodo Hamilton, which I think she has two or three houses on Stratford Avenue. Just on an aside, when you said that Stratford Avenue does not have very valuable houses, I don't know if you would want to say that after you saw Ms. Hamilton's houses. They're beautiful. So we have the density modification. And also the other thing that we didn't understand was it's basically a flag lot. And so you drive in, I'm not sure where the fire trucks would go. I know that Mr. Fuchs doesn't want anybody driving over his property. I talked to him this morning. I don't know about citizens. But I don't know how they would turn around. It just seems a little unsafe. Okay. Hardship. There is no hardship on this. You can absolutely develop it either as an office, we're fine with that. A restaurant, we're fine with that. Single-family homes absolutely are selling in sites like this. I think that you saw Radnor Walk by Tom Bentley in the last year and a half. He's selling at a very fast clip. Those houses are right on Lancaster. They look over apartments and McDonald's on one side. So they are definitely selling. They were R4, 4.7 acres, and he got 10 lots approved, okay? The height of the fence, I'm not sure why the front of Stratford would be fenced at all. There's no fences on Stratford Avenue. Just like if I fenced my property on farm, I would be the only property to have a fence on the farm. It doesn't seem in character with any of the developments around our quadrant or ward, Mr. Higgins' ward. Fire I've gone over. I guess the other thing that the neighborhood is very concerned about is home values, as we all are in Radnor and everywhere else in America. We've come through a pretty trying time, and we're just climbing out of it in America. Some of the home values have absolutely climbed up in our area. What we're concerned about, and I've talked to several realtors, I myself have been in commercial real estate development for about 20 years, and so I'm speaking a little from what I heard from my realtor friends and my personal background. There is absolutely fact-based that if you put townhomes next to these type of homes.
I have to object. This sounds like hearsay. She's saying what she
Okay.
spoke to a realtor about.
It's okay. I'll speak from my own 20-year commercial real estate development career, okay? If you
Object,
put,
she's commercial real estate and she's speaking about residential.
I'm a homeowner that's going to be impacted. I'll speak from that, okay? As a homeowner on 12 Farm Road, there is no doubt in my mind, nor my neighbors in whole or part, that we would be impacted by the value of putting attached dwellings next to what could be, simply put, a few single-family homes and would sell, or if the office wants to be renovated, or the restaurant. So we are willing and able to work with somebody. We also know of a lot of people who would do those type of plans. So I think that this is a raw deal for the current stakeholders of Radnor. Thank you. I think we have some more.
How long has that been vacant?
I will go through that. I know that intimately. I have deeds with me and mortgages as well, if we need any exhibits. It was Mr. Alberto Guadagnini was the operator of Villa Stratford for about 24 years. He was older. He has a vineyard in Italy. He wanted to retire. So he is the current mortgage holder of that property. He retired, and he sold it to a Ms. Teresa Takix, who you might have seen through her spa medical development. He gave her almost 90% seller finance paper. It was not financeable as a bank, but her purchase price to him was financed by him.
How long has it been vacant?
It's been vacant for since '05, '04. But the reason it's been vacant, if you will, is that
This is the third person that's been in front of this board for this development of this property. And,
Well,
and they've
can I-
never, and it hasn't moved.
no, it has moved, sir.
No, we had somebody came in here, wanted to put a restaurant there, and never got off the ground.
Right.
We had someone else that wanted to put the spa there, and obviously, the only ground it got off of was to take stuff out of the
Okay.
building. I guess what I'm asking is.
Yes.
Is that, since there's been nobody in that property since 2005.
Mm-hmm.
How many, that's 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just wondering, what's the best use for that property? You're saying single-family homes, and it may very well be single-family homes.
I appreciate
Okay.
that.
I don't judge that. That's not my call to judge it. We have to, at this board, we kind of have to look at, what's there and what's the best thing that can be put there within the realm of the zoning ordinance. Okay, and you have to remember, we may pass something tonight, or we reject to pass something tonight, okay? And they may be back in front of us in 4 months, because whatever happens here, as you heard Mr. Higgins say, they still have to go to the commissioners.
Well, the commissioners have seen the concept plan and didn't think the density modification applied here.
Well,
Well, it's on tape.
It doesn't, first of all, I don't talk for the commissioners, and unless you're a commissioner, you can't talk for the commissioners.
Okay.
All I know is that, whatever we address here tonight is going to go to another step, okay? And it probably 7 more steps, and then probably wind up back in front of us again, okay? I think that the neighbors should really consider, the way I look at this is that the neighbors and the developer should try and figure out some way that's the best way to develop this property. Because I think by not doing that, it's, in the long run, it's going to deteriorate the values of your homes in the long term, not the short term.
Okay.
And I don't think another restaurant is helpful to you. I can't imagine you'd want a restaurant in your backyard.
I bought
when
the
you could
house
have a
and I like
house.
the idea. It didn't bug me at all. What bugs me is taking my natural light away
Yeah, but
and putting commercial light right in me.
You had a restaurant that the chef had, but the next one might be, a restaurant with, a bunch of music and loud at night, and you're going to be saying, "Oh, why did we do this?" So you kind of have to weigh both
Yeah.
ends of this.
I think that we're all in harmony, that we would take that chance, and we've worked with people. But you asked me another question, why? And I know why, if you would like the answer. You have an owner that retired, but he owned his property without a mortgage. He gave seller finance several times
but
to
that's
dreamers.
irrelevant. That's irrelevant to
But
our
it is
case.
why it didn't work, sir.
Well, it has nothing. It really doesn't. It's been vacant for 8 years. I might buy that if it's 1 year or one person, but it's been a long time.
Well, it's been 2 people.
Okay, it's still been 8 years.
Right, but it took him that long to
Okay.
take it back and all that kind of stuff.
Anyone else? Are you done?
No, I would like the rest of my neighbors to speak. Thank you.
I will let them do that. So I asked
Awesome.
you if you're done.
There you go.
Yes.
Sure,
Yes, you can.
absolutely.
I'll try to be brief.
Okay.
No, we have
got
2.
matching ones.
We really have 3.
Okay,
We have one that doesn't move and 2 that move.
Okay, George.
I'll try to be brief.
Okay.
You said in the letter that you submitted to all of your neighbors, you said in there, and you told the people that you're unanimously opposed to...
Is your mic on? Is your mic on, George?
It is. I'll bring it
better.
closer. Your letter says, "We are unanimously opposed to any zoning change in the property's current and long-standing R4 zoning." Is that your statement?
Well, I think the intent was,
Not your intent. That's what your letter that you got people to sign says, doesn't it? I have it here. You can
George,
look at it.
whatever is written there is what they signed to.
Okay, and you know that we're not seeking to change the R4 zoning. In fact, the R4 zoning is one of the things, coupled with the shape of our property, and the other thing that we're trying to live with, and that's why we're asking for the variance.
Right. In addition, George,
and you know
as you
that-
factually know, my neighborhood is opposed to townhomes.
Excuse me, and you know that townhomes are a permitted use in R4 under density modification.
But under straight R4, they are not.
but they are permitted under density modification.
I think it's pretty clear what we intend and what we oppose, George.
I'm not asking what you oppose. I know you oppose a lot of things.
No, just the townhouses shoot up.
The fence on Stratford Avenue.
Yes.
How does that affect you?
It's a light thing, George, but I'm saying it's out of character. I don't understand why you want to put an 8-foot fence around the whole property.
You
and
said
on
you-
Stratford. And on Stratford.
How
I
does
just
that
didn't-
affect you on Farm Road?
It doesn't. I was just putting up that it was out of character with the whole township. It just didn't make sense to me.
You brought up about Radnor Walk.
Yes.
I was here in front of the zoning board about that. You said it's next to McDonald's. It's not next to McDonald's.
I didn't say it's next to McDonald's. I said it looks over. Some of the houses will look over because they will be tall enough. And when the steep slopes go down there, and you will see the McDonald's. I said it looked over, and it looks right.
That property is not split zoned, is it?
You mean 10% of it is not for commercial? No.
Is any part of it zoned commercial?
No.
Is any part of it surrounded by commercial zoning or commercial uses?
It is surrounded, yes. It's surrounded by the McDonald's on the
No,
thing.
we went over that. What is right next door to it? Is there any commercial uses next door to that
You mean
property?
directly next door?
Yes, like we have here.
I don't think so.
I don't think
Across
so.
the street is the apartments, the 12-story apartments.
And our plan, Exhibit A5, you say that you're opposed to this group of townhouses, which I understand, and you want single-family dwellings. If this was one large single-family dwelling, how would that have less impacts on you than this building?
What I said is we have 3 choices. We like the office space, just know without
Please
it.
answer my question. My question is, you object to these being townhomes. If this was one large, single-family dwelling, somebody built another mansion here, how would that have any greater impacts on you back here on Farm Road than if we make it townhomes?
You mean this would be a 40-some thousand square foot mansion?
Yes.
I guess when you show me the plan, I can comment on it. I can't really think about that now. This is the plan you're showing us, and
So you can't tell me there would be any, that this single family wouldn't have any less impacts? You can't tell me that.
we're for keeping the open space here and having the office or a restaurant or some other
I know
use
what you're
here,
for.
or scraping the whole thing and having single-family homes.
And with regard to the open space that you talked about, you don't have any right to keep that open, do you? You don't own an easement over that property?
No, just like you don't own easements here.
You realize that if single-family dwellings were built here, your accessory structures could go 3 feet to your property line.
Yes, I saw your layout of accessory structures, and so did everybody else.
That's all I have at this time.
Let me ask you a question. If they had 6 houses, 6 townhouses, would that make a difference? Using your 80-20 theory that there's an acre there and they can put 5.5 houses on it, that means by your calculations they could put six townhouses there.
I believe that they could, when you lay out, it would make a difference. We want single-family homes. We enjoy our beautiful,
Yeah, but I
we believe there is plenty of new, on the books, and current townhouses. And that since it's R4, it would be a beautiful extension of our neighborhood.
But I think the point might be,
We believe that townhouses next to our kinds of houses dilute our value.
okay, anyone else? I'm sorry.
Before we...
You want an extension to your neighborhood, but you wouldn't want us to put single families and build Windsor Road through. You don't want us to be that extended.
Well, I mean, we have many neighborhoods that don't have cross-through roads, George, and they still come to our block party. I mean...
I'm not asking about your block party. You're saying you want...
It's a driveway.
You want it to be extended, but you don't want us...
We would not want to open up the Schreiber and Williams driveway, no.
Before we go further, This poster board, I think, has to be left with the township
Yes.
as
Oh.
an
Yes.
exhibit.
Yes.
And
It's going to
also-
be A, we need to mark that.
Is that P1?
No, make it, just a second on the labeling. We should have labeled the DeMauro letter and the signed Schreiber letter. So let's
Well,
keep.
I thought the DeMauro letter was now in here. So I'm
On
gonna
the
put it in
signed
there.
one, the signed one is the authentic set. So I would label DeMauro as P2. The signed Schreiber letter, which is the one that we pay any attention to, is P3, and then this could be P4. But
Okay.
before we,
The picture will be P4.
yeah, just write P4.
Do you want me to write
Where's the letter? Somebody took it. Who took it?
P?
Who's got the signed?
P4.
Yeah, the
That's it.
signed. Yeah.
I just need it for the transfer.
Okay. Okay. Did you mark
Yeah, this is Mark.
P4? Okay, great, perfect. You need to be sworn in, please.
Yes, my name is Jesse Booker.
I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Are you also,
This is my wife, Melissa Booker.
okay, you need to be signed, sworn.
Your name is?
Melissa Booker?
And you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Hi, my name's Jesse Booker. I'm a resident of Windsor Avenue, actually the corner of Windsor and Farm.
Can you use a microphone?
Oh, sorry. Sure. Again, my name's Jesse Booker. I live at 314 Windsor Avenue, which is the corner of Windsor and Farm Road as it stands today. We're here because we do oppose the plan for townhomes in the Villa Stratford property. We feel we have a patio that faces Farm Road. We are concerned about the sight lines and what we will see given this new development. Certainly, we enjoy our sunsets and concerned that we would not be able to see that anymore. We've also just recently put into our house maybe 20% of our property value in improvements, and we would hate to, lose that investment as well. I think the area has really stayed the way it is because the residents have always wanted to remain this way. We haven't, to say that it hasn't, no road has been built there, I think it reflects on the community and what we see as how we'd like to have it maintained. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello. Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And state your names for the record, please.
I'm Nancy Dersimonian. I live at
How to
6,
spell that?
I'm sorry, Dersimonian.
My name's Nishan Dersimonian. First,
Spell your first name.
Nishan, and we live on 16 Farm Road.
Our home is in between the Schreibers and Leslie Morgan's, so our backyard is basically in the middle of the development or the property in question. And just for background, I think we were the last people to buy into this neighborhood. We moved here 4 years ago from Virginia, and we probably looked at 70 homes in Radnor. And I got very discouraged because there's many neighborhoods with, where the streets are where the homes are on busy streets, or, we have young kids, and I would have to drive them because there's nowhere to really walk. And I'm a CPA, so it was during tax season, and I told my realtor that at this point I was so discouraged that I was going to start looking for homes after April 15th. And this home on Farm Road came on the market, and he said, you really should go see it. It's a gem. And so we went and saw it, and basically we just fell in love with the neighborhood. We fell in love with the home. We knew that the backyard, that there was risk there, but we weren't sure. But living in Radnor, I would just think that, just living here for 4 years, I'm just really proud of the township. And I would think that the community would want to preserve what makes Radnor special. And I just feel like this big building, maybe Wicklow-like, would be just a monstrosity and maybe an eyesore. It would take away from our views. We have great neighbors who take pride in the neighborhood, and I just think it's important to continue this oasis-like area. People who've come to my home said this is like a little oasis. They don't even know it exists. And I just think it's just important to preserve and keep Radnor and Radnor's integrity of a great community intact. Thank you.
Does that mean to leave that ground open?
I'm sorry?
Does that mean that that property is left
No,
open?
we're not opposed to development. I would agree with you. I would probably, well, not even probably, I would prefer resoundingly an office building over a restaurant to be in our backyard. I think that, again, that would be beneficial to Farm and Windsor as a neighborhood over a potential bar like Smoky Joe's or restaurant with, late nights and, smells of food, and who knows what else could, would come with that. As far as just what they build behind us, I know that I agree, you don't want to lose the sunsets. You don't want a huge building right behind ours. And so, again, I have this Wicklow impression, and it's just what's the word, like imposing. And I just don't think that would just benefit, Radnor as a neighborhood. Because our homes I just had our home appraised, actually, and we refinanced, and our appraisal was really surprising to us in a positive way. And again, I just think that's what, with young kids, I want Radnor schools to continue to do well, I want the property values to do well, and I just think it would be important as a board to consider this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to say? Okay, so as long as it's not redundant, right?
I talk quickly, don't worry.
Okay, as long as you talk quickly.
From that generation where we talk really fast. I do. Catherine Donches.
And spell your last.
Donches. Okay, is this on? We seem to have trouble with this as a neighborhood. So I'm third generation living on Windsor Avenue. My grandparents live 2 houses down from us. My family has lived there my entire life, and my brother and I have enjoyed living there for our entire lives. And I can say without doubt that we feel that this would be detrimental to the quality of life that we have thus far enjoyed, and we don't believe that is a consequence of development in general, just this specific type of development. And I think that the fact that so many different types of modification are being proposed as necessary for this development plan to come into action stands as a testament to the fact that this property was not intended for this kind of use. Additionally, since I've lived there my entire life, I've been able to observe kind of the changes that our neighborhood has undergone. And recently, a lot of business development increased commercial use. I know Manila's got a liquor license, which was definitely kind of witnessed by everyone here, but that we've noticed a lot of increased traffic in our neighborhood. And that we would wish that any type of development, given that you guys have been sensitive to the needs of our neighborhood, and we definitely appreciate that, but that the fact that the amount of variance that has been asked for and the amount of modifications that have been requested just kind of serves to show that this is not the right place for this.
Okay, one thing I want to kind of clear up from my standpoint relative to the 7 things that they listed. Some of them are really by rights. I mean, that they encroach to something that's already there. They're kind of doing that to kind of protect themselves in case you need that. I mean, there are a few things that, they're really kind of asking for 2 major things here. Right, is the density modification and the buffer, really, are the 2 things that are really, that are the crux to this whole thing.
Okay. Well, just
yeah, I understand, but
I know.
it's good you did talk fast. You done?
Well, I can
Well, I
talk.
mean, you told me fast now, you're slowing down.
I'll talk even. I can talk faster. It's totally possible. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that one source of potential, one thing that was cited as something that would not strongly impact our neighborhood is that this community would attract a lot of senior citizen residents, and I just, personally, I'm young. I don't know a lot of things, but I don't see any way of kind of
Be careful now.
Uh-oh. Well, I just don't see any way of ensuring that population will buy into this community.
Yeah, I don't know if he called so much senior citizens as age restricted, and I think what they're looking at is that, more of the 40, 50th as opposed to the 60, 70-ish.
Okay. I just mean in terms of
Yeah.
citing that it won't be a family atmosphere, which is not something that our neighborhood is opposed to, but that would be kind of cited as an advantage to this community.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I got.
Who do we have left?
And then, if you raise your right hand, you do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And you have to speak up and state your name, please.
Okay. Colleen Sheehan.
And spell that.
The last name is Sheehan, S-H-E-E-H-A-N.
And you know what, you can just speak into the abundance.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that, there you go.
Okay.
Just don't move around.
Okay. I live at 409 Windsor. I'm one door up from Kitty.
Are you on here? Can you point it out on that drawing on the, you're not there. Are you there or you're not there? Windsor's the top, is the top row. No? Windsor's the top street. Can you help her?
Oh, okay. I'm second house here.
Okay, just so we have an idea where you are relative to the property.
Okay, so
Thank you.
we see out our backyard. We see the proposed site. We bought our house in 1971. I just wanted to point out that the building and the Stratford building, the old restaurant, isn't a historic site. It's a nice old building, but it isn't a historic site. Up the hill from us, 2 doors, is where the Shanes live, is the sister house to the restaurant, and that was built for the daughter. And they had a nice 1-acre front lawn, and they built 3 houses on the front lawn of the mansion that's up the hill, and mine is one of the houses. So I'm all for, putting houses in, but not townhouses. I was saying to some of the neighbors on Farm Road, we back up to the Stratford office buildings, and they're a long distance away from us. We can still get to see the sunsets. These people are not going to see a sunset again. It doesn't look near as bad on that picture as it's going to be when you put a 40-foot building right up behind their houses.
It's 35. That's all
Yes,
we're allowed.
but
We're not asking for, but you got to remember.
But Farm is
I
lower, it
understand,
goes
but-
downhill.
Yeah.
The office building that's next to Leslie was going to be a 2-story office building. They built up the ground, they built parking underneath, and that building is just huge. We've watched a lot of people come in and ask for variances over the past 35 years and changes. They weren't supposed to be able to take a left turn out of the office building, and they do. I'm just really opposed to this. And I think, there's just no reason to put 8 townhouses on this property at all.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much.
Hello.
Yes.
When you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I will.
And your name, please?
My name is Jean Leopold. I live at 315 Windsor Avenue, and my home does not directly impact this development area, but I live on the street, and I'm just going to speak to that issue. I have young grandchildren who I take care of in my home, and one of the things that really distresses me so much on our little cul-de-sac is that cars do not slow down to 25 miles an hour. The traffic is tremendous on our street, especially in the morning when the children are getting on the bus, and also after school around 4 o'clock. This is my concern. And I don't believe that we should rush to develop land for the sake of increasing somebody's pocketbook. I think we should be very concerned as a member of Radnor Township for 36 years that we remain a good township, one that we care about the citizens who are presently living here and paying taxes here. And we have seen the office building go up on the end of Farm Road, and they promised us all sorts of things, buffers of trees, and a building that wouldn't overshadow our houses. And what did we get? We got a building that overshadowed houses and trees that were left to disease after they decided they were no longer interested in the money they gained from Radnor and from living and building in Radnor Township. And I'm tired of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? George, I have a couple issues, George. And one of them is 280-100B9. And it's application for development. Any application for conditional use approval for proposed density modification development is provided for in this article shall submit in accordance with the terms of Article XXII conditional uses of this chapter. And you go to 9, the results of a traffic study taken on the surrounding and nearby roads. Do you have that, George?
Could you give me that code site again?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's 280-100-9.
B9.
B9, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this section appears to be part of the conditional use that we have to go through. It says any application for conditional use for density modification. So when we, if we get any relief from you, when we apply for the conditional use.
We can't, I don't think we can give it, John, can we, without this?
Well, I think here's the problem.
It's part of the conditional use.
I understand, but you're asking for a use variance and dimensional variances, and they're quite substantial, and legally they're hard to get. And this is part of the conditional use and is an element of your conditional use, but in my view, it's also part of your burden, the applicant's burden of proof of showing that this will not adversely impact the neighborhood. So frankly, I see the traffic study where the tougher standards apply, which is this stage of the proceeding, as being more useful. And I can obviously, if approval is granted, it doesn't take away the total ability of the Board of Commissioners to administer the conditional use. In other words, this isn't a precedent, but still, while this applies to a conditional use, I see it as applying to a situation of, are you going to adversely impact the neighborhood? Traffic has been raised by the neighbors, and to have sort of assurances that we'll have a traffic study in the conditional use stage, I don't think answers that. And I think that that's a component of your variance burden, because this is a variance that has certainly not been I don't see that it has been met, and the concern's been raised.
Well, the variance that we're asking for that would affect traffic is, I suppose, the conversion of the restaurant and the bar to an office. The other variances really don't affect traffic.
But you also have the variance for the townhome, the density modification development. I mean,
yeah, we don't need a variance to do a townhome. That's a permitted use. We just need a variance to go ask for the conditional use. Converting the restaurant to office, yes.
Yeah. But you also need, you don't have the minimum acreage for a conditional use, and you're in a neighborhood where there are lots of other small properties.
I think that it's pretty clear to me that the office will have less traffic than the restaurant, and I haven't heard any testimony, and I don't see any way that the people from the townhouse or the office are going to want to come back to this neighborhood, especially if we're building a fence around it.
Yeah, and the other thing is the last person kind of kicked that, and the last lady that talked kind of talked about, as well as a sentence in the letter, but more so the last person that talked brought
She's
the
talking
issue
about-
of the traffic.
She's talking about this office building, which is on the corner of Farm
I
Road.
I
and has an
understand, but
access directly to Farm Road.
I understand that.
We only have access to Stratford. We're not asking to connect through, and we're asking to build a fence around the property. So I don't see why anybody coming to the office or the townhomes would have any reason to go here to park. We've got more parking than we need, or any reason to drive through here to get to here. That would be out of your way.
Right.
So that's
I
my...
I think to protect our board, I think a traffic study should be done. You know, and you're going to need it sooner or later anyhow, regardless of what you do. I personally kind of think that maybe 8 might be too many houses. You know, maybe you can figure out some way of meeting with the people and reducing that a little bit to kind of fall into their 80-20 plan or whatever they called it. But that may in fact help you, and that's just my personal opinion, and I'm only talking from me. And I had mentioned before some of the other issues are really kind of mundane relative to structures or space that's already there. You know,
Right.
They're there, so they're kind of in there. I think that the neighbors do have some real concerns, and I think in the long run, the people who buy these properties, whether they're single-family homes or it's an office building or a townhouse that ultimately gets built there, they have to live with these people. And we as a board need to take their opinions and their ideas into consideration when we make a call on this. I would suggest that you kind of ask for continuance to get your traffic study. And again, Bo, I would meet with these people and really try and come up with something that's they'll compromise to you and you compromise to them. And I think that you can get something done. I think the plan is really nice. I think that it'll benefit the property. I think overall their property values will go up and not down that they're concerned with. But that's either here or there. And whatever we do, you still have to go in front of the commissioners to get them to okay a density modification. Have you been to the Planning Commission? Someone said you have been to the Planning Commission?
Just with a sketch
Okay.
plan review.
I mean, and they're all the things you got to do, and you're going to probably be back in front of this board again, I would imagine.
Yeah, I also, again, we have to divorce as a board, steer clear of the good idea thing where a variance is concerned, and you've got to meet your burdens of hardship and of minimum relief necessary to alleviate the hardship, and of no adverse impact to the surrounding community. Speaking just for myself and not having spoken, this is my view. I've not solicited the board's views on this, but I can. There's a lot that's being put on this property, and maybe that's what needs to be done. But it is an awful lot that's being shoehorned into this property. Your acreage is less than half of what you need for a density modification. So I personally see the hardship component as a very real hurdle for you, and I also see that from based on the maps we've seen, there are lots of little smaller lots all over the place. If you were surrounded by bigger properties, maybe, but I think that the impact of the possible impact on the neighborhood, because that there are a lot of neighbors there and very nice houses, has to be considered. And in a variant situation, the impact on the neighborhood is part of your burden, not theirs. It's not their burden to prove the negative. It's your burden to establish all three components of a variance case: hardship, minimum relief, and no adverse impact on the community.
And I think we spent a long time going over the hardships and how we have we don't believe the impacts, but maybe I could have a moment to confer with my client.
Mm-hmm.
understand you. I'll send it back.
Okay, I own a mortgage on your house.
We're still in session. You can't, well, he's not here.
No.
That wouldn't be fair. He should hear you. I mean, God forbid he.
have to wait for hours for that, yes. Thank you very much.
If you don't want to talk anymore.
Well, I'm not allowed to.
When he comes back, you can. I said you can't talk when he's not here. No.
No, they're caucusing as to what they want to do next.
Can she leave?
Excuse, we need to, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we need to have all comments on the mic, so if they're going to speak, it needs to be on the mic, just for the audience at home. They're getting one side of this conversation.
Okay. We were discussing who was going to leave, for those at home that didn't hear. And someone has a final, so she left. And we're waiting for the appellant to come back. I'm sorry, George.
Yes, we would like to request the continuance.
Okay.
George, I request you to meet with them again and come to an agreement so that you won't have to bargain here.
We will meet with them. I can't promise an agreement, but we will try.
Some kind of accommodation.
And we will
Okay, thank you.
meet with them and try to resolve it.
Mr. Brosman, how long a continuance do you want?
When is your next meeting?
1 month, the next Thursday, the first Thursday in June.
Not the first Thursday.
Third Thursday. I'm all right.
Yeah. And you grant us the extension of time to recommence the hearing, and then the 45 days after the conclusions of hearings to reach a decision
Yes.
as per the MPC?
I don't think you need one, but if you do, I grant it.
Okay.
June 20th would be
20th
the
of
date.
June. Okay. You have something else you want to add, Kate? George, I let her wait for you to come back, George.
Yeah. Ms. Kate Donchis, who is gainfully going to be a doctor, had to leave for finals, but she said, Leslie, you have to come up. And I agree. I want to be very clear on something you said. Hardships. I want to go through the argument again from our neighborhood perspective and mine personally.
Actually,
Why don't you wait?
we're continuing the
Okay.
hearing.
It's going to be continued. Why don't you wait and
Okay.
talk to them and address it with them?
Okay.
Okay, and then you might come up with a solution, so you don't have to do it
Well,
now.
we've given 3 solutions, sir,
Well,
for the record.
But you need to be, the only thing I can say is, both sides need to be amenable to some ideas from the other side. You can't go in and say, here's the line in the road, and we're not moving from it, because that's not compromise, And you have to kind of keep in mind, what they can do that's going to be beneficial to both sides, not just to one side, because that doesn't work. Okay? And in the long run, you want a development that's going to be beneficial to your neighborhood. Okay? Yes. Okay. No other business. We're adjourned.